What's up, San Diego?
This is San Diego sports. The wins, the losses, the moments that matter, and the opinions that come with them.
Padres have clinched the playoffs in back-to-back seasons for the first time since 05 and 06.
No hype, no filter. Just the truth about your teams, your city, and the people who care about it most.
The reality is the expectations are higher now for this club than they were in 2019 and 2020 when the Padres hadn't made the playoffs that many times.
He's been here. He knows this city. And now he's leading the conversation every single day. Live and local on 97.3 The Fan.
This is fun. We're doing this for fun. This is fun. Have fun. Enjoy the fun with us having fun.
Now, here's Braden Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego? And a happy Tuesday to everybody out there in America's finest city. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. It's good to be with all of you today. But not great after a Padres loss yesterday to the Atlanta Braves. Puts them a little bit more behind the eight ball, if you will. But I will say this. I mean, I think I did text Frank this last night. I mean, I look at this Padres team and the way that they're playing right now and the fact that they're 1-3 in the second half. I looked at the standings again I started looking at the scores. I looked at the standings again. This team is going to fail their way into the playoffs right now. I can't believe they have actually gone 1-3 to start the second half and have picked up a game of the wild card. They're 2.5 games back of the wild card. I mean, this Padres team might not even need to win. They might go like 500. You know what? I predicted them to go 500 on this road trip, which wouldn't be that great. It would put you in this purgatory again to figure out exactly what to do at the trade deadline. Almost like we as fans believe it's so cut and dry of this is where you buy and this is where you sell. I think it's more complex than that. But I could see a situation where the Padres play 500 and actually find their way into a wild card spot at the end of this road trip because of the fact everybody else sucks. I mean, start looking at the teams right now. I mean, every year, this happens every year. Every year in about June, late May, early June, Frank, you look at the standings in the National League and you go, it's going to take 89 wins to get into the postseason. It's going to take almost 90 wins to get in the postseason. And then the second half starts. Cardinals have lost 3 straight. The Marlins have lost 7 straight. Pirates lost last night. Diamondbacks lost last night. The only one that's won was the only one that won last night was the Washington Nationals, and they're a game and a half in front of you right now and a game out of a wild card spot. Padres are 1-3 in the 4 games here in the second half, and they are 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. I mean, you would think the team was like 7 or 8 games out of a wild card spot. Look, I get it. I understand. This is not a team that's going to win in the postseason if they actually make it, which is not necessarily anything close to a guarantee with the way that they've been playing. I mean, they have one big week, and all of a sudden the Padres are in a playoff spot because of the fact that everybody competing for that final spot is mediocre at best. We talked about the American League yesterday. We'll talk about the National League today. I mean, the American League is terrible. The National League, outside of basically 2 teams, maybe 3, is not very good. I mean, the Phillies right now are thriving on the fact that their pitching staff is good. The Cubs are benefiting from the fact that they can outslug everybody, but they're both one-dimensional teams. We've already seen the Padres do well against Atlanta. Last night was kind of a game that if you had a better first half, you wouldn't even care about last night's loss. You lost on a catcher's interference at the end of the day. A catcher's interference. It's another one of those laughable, like, I can't believe they lost that game last night. Oh well, we'll get them tomorrow. If they had a good first half, which they did not. The fact that they didn't have a good first half and you had last night's game, bang. DEFCON 1. We're in trouble. This team is so fascinating. I mean, they are failing their way into a playoff spot as of right now. 1-3, 2.5 games out of a playoff spot. Last night, JP Sears did well. He pitched 5 innings. He gave up the 1 earned run. He's been okay. I thought yesterday was a pretty good outing for him. It's a shame that the Padres were unable to take advantage of that. Wandy Peralta could not shut the door yesterday in the next inning. We haven't seen the pitching staff really be able to do that, but they are missing Estrada. They are missing Morgan. They are also missing, Jason Adam. I mean, these are some of the pieces that you thought were going to be part of your team in 2026. I mean, they've had their fair share of injuries just like everybody else, but it's a shame that the Padres were unable to take advantage of a good outing out of JP Sears. 5 innings, 2 runs, only 1 of them earned on 3 hits, 3 strikeouts. He did give up that home run, but, you can give up solo shots. That's not going to hurt you. I am a little disappointed in the fact that the Padres only put up 2 runs against Bryce Elder, who had been a train wreck for most of the season, who had been awful in his last 4 starts. He had an 11 ERA in his last 4 starts going into last night. He had over a 9.38 or 9.8 something ERA against the Padres in his career. And he went out there and did very well. I mean, he gave up the 1 home run to Manny Machado, who now has 20 home runs on the season, despite hitting like just above the Mendoza line at 200. But overall last night, Padre game, It's one of those games that honestly doesn't really matter if you had a good first half, but they didn't have a good first half. And so now it's a problem. So we'll see what this Padre team does moving forward after last night's game. I mean, I can't really pull too much out of it aside from the fact that the Padres, they ran into outs. They tried to find different ways to score runs. Ty France continues to be on a heater. Manny Machado hits another home run. JP Sears had a good outing. They made 1 extra mistake than the Braves did, and they end up losing by 1. That happens. That's baseball. But the problem is they can't have too many that's baseball games left. And right now, I mean, you better win the next 2 games because I don't think they're winning Thursday. I mean, Thursday, you're going to go Griffin Canning against Chris Sale. Good luck. They got to win tonight and tomorrow to just split with the Braves, which I thought they would probably do if you're lucky. And then over the weekend, you got the Marlins. And if you take 2 out of 3 from the Marlins, you go 500 on the road trip. Probably exactly where you were when you started, because who knows where these other teams are going to start winning. I can't imagine the Marlins losing more than 7, but they've already lost 7 in a row. Cardinals haven't looked good. Nationals can hit. In fact, they got the 3rd best WAR for hitting, according to Fangraphs of the National League, and their pitching is just so bad. I mean, they're going to be relatively around and in this thing just because everybody else in the National League isn't very good. But it leads to the conversation about what you do with Mason Miller. And this is the deal. It's like after every loss, Frank, it seems like it's got to trade Mason Miller, got to trade everything that's not held down to the ship. After every win, it's like, maybe we shouldn't trade Mason Miller. I don't want to do this exercise for the next, however many games it is. 14 games? No. Like 12 games left before the trade deadline. It gets to a point where there is no game plan that automatically wins all the time.
No,
there isn't one. The only one that you can have is continue to throw money to buy your problems away, which is the only one that is ever going to have success. But not everybody can do that, and not everybody's good at doing that. Not to bring up a sore subject, but I mean, the Mets could throw a lot of money at problems, and it hasn't worked out for them.
No kidding.
But I look at this, and we've had the conversation. And here's the deal: like, I have watched this team for 3 decades now, and I know what that team was when they tried to be the current Milwaukee Brewers. And I don't ever want to go back to being that team. I don't. I want nothing to do with here's the next best thing that's ever happened to baseball, expectations for every top prospect the Padres have, him being a fringe player and then going, oh, well, I guess that didn't work. Now what? I'm done with the Corey Spangenbergs and the Austin Hedges and the Hunter Renfroes and the Aaron Cunninghams and all of these prospects the Padres have had that haven't really amounted to anything, and including a lot of the guys that they have traded away. They have had a couple hit. There's been like, what, 3 that you could think of off the top of your head that were just like absolute guys that have been perennial all-stars that you wish you had. But JJ Cooper mentioned it, and and it's happened a lot. The trade deadline, when you trade stars away, the teams don't get the same value in return. You're basically getting fringe players, and it's very, very slim and few and far between when you get big-time players out of these trades. The Nationals lucked out. And here's the other thing, too, Frank, about this. I just think people see that the Padres traded away James Wood and CJ Abrams, and they think that happens all the time. They think that those guys that happens at every trade deadline, and we should have kept these players, and that happens all the time, and it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's an anomaly. The fact that those guys actually worked out, and the best part of it is CJ Abrams is expected to get traded at this trade deadline, and James Wood is not expected to be too far behind him. Like, maybe not this trade deadline, but in the near future. So for both of those guys to be traded, they worked out, but both of those guys to be traded is absolutely insane. And also Mackenzie Gore is not with them anymore. What happened with the Juan Soto trade, you needed to give up that kind of quality in order to bring Juan Soto in here. But it was not a guarantee that those guys were going to hit. James Wood had never played in the major leagues before. CJ Abrams and Mackenzie Gore weren't necessarily impressive when they did play up here. So the fact that those guys turned into what they did was more of a fluke than anything. The fact that now you're looking at what Leo DeVries is doing and what DeVries did at the Futures game, and he's looking like he's going to be okay. There's no guarantee that once he jumps up to make that jump into the major leagues, that he is going to be the player that people think he's going to be.
Right now, and this is according to Fangraphs, okay? So Fangraphs has their way of ranking players. And Fangraphs ranks players based on future value, and it's on a scale of 35 plus to 70. And 70 is like the phenomenal player. Like a 70 hitter, according to Fangraphs, is somebody that's going to get expected surplus value of about $195 million when his career is over, which puts him at a 27.5 WAR or 27 WAR, and it gives him a star odd of 87.5%. That's like the highest level. And they redid the rankings. You know the last player that has gotten a 70 future value to a pitcher? You know who the last player was that they gave that to? They gave that to Mackenzie Gore in 2020. They thought he had an 87.5% chance of being a star, projected by the end of his career to have a 27.5 WAR. And you know what? I don't necessarily know that's the case. The last 3 65s that Fangraphs handed out, Paul Skeens, Roki Sasaki, Nolan McLean. Paul Skeens kind of worked out. Fine. Roki Sasaki hasn't had that big of a chance, right? Nolan McLean, how's Nolan McLean been for the Mets this year?
Better after they got AI out of there. He threw 6 innings, 10 strikeouts his last outing.
Right. But a 65 future value player is expected to have a 13.5 WAR. They have a 40% chance of being a star. I mean, you look at what these players might potentially be, there's not a lot that are going to be like future studs. I just think everybody assumes that's going to be the case. Just look at Leo DeVries. He's rated as a 60 future value for a player. He's the A's best prospect in a farm system that's 26th in baseball, the A's, according to Fangraphs. Leo DeVries checks out to be a 60 future value player. It says the distance between the ceiling and his floor outcomes is the risk. He's rated as a high risk because he's 19 years old, even though his estimated time of arrival might be next year for the A's, right? a 60 future value, that means he has a 40% chance of being a star. A 40% chance. So you took a player, and I'm not saying this justifies the trade last year for Mason Miller, but you take a player that has a 40% chance of being a star and you traded him for a guy that's actually a star. These are the risks you're taking. I mean, we talked about this so many times with prospect rankings. Have you ever seen a prospect ranking that was bad on somebody? It's like, oh, you know what? This guy's not very good. No, you don't even get those, right? So like everybody that's in the top 30 prospects has like all these nice written pieces about them. But Leo DeVries is a 60 future value, according to Fangraphs. Unless you don't believe Fangraphs, and who would? I mean, they did rank Mackenzie Gore as a 70 future value. As of right now, there's only one player. There's only one player in the minor leagues that gets a 70 future value, and that's Connor Griffin. His risk is still high. He's had an 87% chance of becoming a star. He's the only guy. Milwaukee has a player that's a 65 future value bat. Baltimore's got a guy like that. That's it. There's one pitcher that has a 65 future value, according to Fangraphs, in all of the minor leagues, and that's Nolan McLean. And he's already in the big leagues, right? So, in my opinion, in order to ship off Mason Miller, I would have to get at least one player, maybe two, that have a 60 future value or higher, and that gives you a 30% chance the guy's going to be a star. So you were trading for potentially two guys that are going to be high prospects. I mean, if you look at some teams that you could trade with, like the Yankees don't have anybody that's higher than a 55 future value. In fact, their two best bats are a 50 future value, which is George Lombard Jr. and Dax Kilby. We've seen those names, right, Frank? We've seen those names. They're at a 50 on the future value list. That means their expected WAR is a 7. That gives him a 13.5% chance of being a star at that spot. Does that make, I mean, like, why would you trade Mason Miller for a guy, for two players, potentially, that have a 13% chance of being a star? You're just hoping you're taking the 13%? You guys gamble like that? Is that how you like put your money down? It's like, hey, you got something that is obviously a star in Mason Miller. You can have Mason Miller, or you can have two players that might be as high of a player as Mason Miller, but they both individually have a 13.5% chance of doing that. Like, this is the real trade-off. I want to make that clear before people just start throwing like all these random prospect names out there, all thinking they're going to turn into, you know, CJ Abrams or James Wood, who are very good players. But unless they become a perennial all-star, I think it's more beneficial for you to keep Mason Miller. Now, the other players on the Padres that might be available to trade, Ty France, Jason Adam, Adrian Morejon, 1-year deal, expiring contract, sure, send them away. But I just think there needs to be more perspective. And we're going to talk more about that throughout the show. Join us today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I'll explain what the future value really means according to Fangraphs when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show, standing as number Sports Station 97 to the Fan. This will be our final World Cup date, if you will, in between, before we turn this back into San Diego FC coverage. They will be back in action coming up this week. Spain, world champions once again, 106-minute goal from Ferran Torres. He lifted Spain to a 1-0 extra time victory over Argentina, giving them their second World Cup title and completing an incredible tournament. Spain allowed just one goal the entire World Cup, dominated possession in the final, and completely shut down Messi in what could be the last World Cup match of his legendary career. Rodri controlled the midfield all night and was deservedly named player of the tournament, but the ending wasn't all celebration. Argentina's Enzo Fernandez was sent off late. Tensions boiled over the final whistle, and several players were involved in a post-match confrontation and confrontations as emotions spilled onto the field. In the end, though, one thing was undeniable. Spain played the best football of the tournament, and they are deserved world champions. Frank, how did Spain reclaim the World Cup title?
It was an incredible match. They didn't rely on one superstar to carry them through the tournament. Instead, they trusted what has defined Spain for years, and that is possession, patience, and control. They conceded one goal throughout the entire tournament, dominated possession through the final, and completely neutralized Lionel Messi and Argentina's attack. The winning goals summed up everything Spain had built through the tournament. Pedro Porro delivered a perfect cross. Nico Williams headed it back across goal. Ferran Torres finished clinically, a true team goal from a true championship team. Argentina was nowhere to be found in that game yesterday.
And if this was Messi's final World Cup appearance, it was a difficult way for one of the greatest careers in sports history to end. Spain simply refused to let him influence the game. I mean, he barely touched the ball.
Bless you. In
the opening stages, and was constantly surrounded whenever he found space, and never found a rhythm that defined the rest of his remarkable tournament. It's not an indictment of Messi. That's just kind of a credit to Spain of just how good they had been. And it wasn't just Messi. I mean, they shut everybody down throughout this tournament.
Yeah, Rodri and Spain completely controlled possession, cutting off Argentina's supply lines and forcing Messi into one of the quietest World Cup matchups of his career. And that's saying something, especially with how his World Cup started. Even in defeat, though, Messi's legacy remains untouchable, a World Cup champion, multiple Copa Americas championships, and one of the greatest playing careers the sport has ever seen. So this would probably be a lot more of a sting for Lionel Messi individually had Argentina not won in Qatar in 2022. But still, this was a bad game, not just from Lionel Messi, but from Argentina, who picked the worst time in this tournament to play their worst match of the tournament.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the final will also be remembered for Argentina just completely acting like, I don't know, children, I guess. I mean, they've completely lost their composure at the end. I mean, midfielder Enzo Fernandez received a second yellow card late in regulation after a reckless challenge on Spain. Leaving Argentina to play with all of extra time with 10 men. Spain took full advantage of that. After Torres scored the winner, emotions boiled over. Players from both sides exchanged words. Pushing and shoving broke out after the final whistle, and several Argentina players were involved in confrontations instead of joining the traditional post-match sportsmanship. To make matters worse, many Argentina players turned away during Spain's trophy celebration rather than acknowledging the new champions. Very disappointing conclusion for a team that had represented its country so passionately throughout the tournament. I thought that was embarrassing for soccer. I think it's embarrassing for them. And, you know, it's if that's what we're going for in the future, that's embarrassing for all of sports if we're going to make this the sportsmanship of the losing team.
Yeah, that was a sore loser moment on a world stage for Argentina. And I mean, it's frustration because of the match and how the match was played out. And it wasn't even really anything bad. It was just Spain just completely snuffed them out. Anything that Argentina tried to do, Spain had multiple answers for it. And Argentina did get close. They almost scored a miracle goal right at the very end to be able to push it to penalties. But even still, I mean, that's just frustration, not of the way the match was officiated, which I thought was fine, not of, just of anything that Argentina necessarily did wrong. It's just frustration that the other team, Spain, had their number, and they had an answer to everything that Argentina tried to throw out at them, to the point where, Argentina just, to the point where they started, because you're getting to that point towards the end of the half, and they were talking about it on the broadcast, that every second that goes by, the game starts flipping into Argentina's favor because they have a world-class goalkeeper. They're very good on penalties. All they have to do is just not lose it and not explode. And that's exactly what they did. So, I mean, even as the game was going into their favor, the frustration of how good Spain was just boiled over. And unfortunately for Argentina, it didn't look good at the end.
Rodri named player of the tournament. We talked about Mbappe maybe trying to put on a show to win the Golden Boot. We talked about Jude Bellingham also. 10:25 on a Monday. There's a lot of tiers to this, but Fangraphs ranks players based on a 20-80 scale breakdown. And what this 20-80 scale breakdown works out to is as they evaluate players, anything that's a 70 plus on a future value. What we're trying to do here on the show is, okay, if you want to go that direction of trading away players for future players, let's do that exercise. We haven't done that exercise because I don't think it's that great of an idea. And I also don't think, and I trust Fangraphs probably a little bit more than like any type of prospect ranking, because they have a lot of data backing their way and stuff. And there's some interesting articles on here on like how do prospect grades translate to future outcomes. They wrote that last year. But if you were going to trade like a Mason Miller to get something back, what would you want in return? I asked that question to that one dude and he had no answer for me because he didn't understand that I wasn't asking for specific names. But like, Frank's pretty smart. Frank likes to play MLB The Show.
That's funny.
Frank likes to fix the Mets problems.
That's your biggest lie so far.
When you were looking at, if you had to trade Mason Miller, how many players would you want back, and what would you want those players to turn into? Where you're like, okay,
I would want one, potentially two all-stars in a 5-player deal. I would want one at least one all-star, 2 more everyday stars. So 3 everyday starters, one of those 3 being an all-star in a 5-player deal.
And then like two regular prospects, I guess. 2 guys that are like you hope they work out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 2 reclamation projects.
2
projects.
Prospects. So 1 all-star, if you do the equate to, right? That's a 60. You want at least 160 future value player. And then you want 2 50 to 55 future value players. And then you'll take 2 players anywhere between 40 and 45, I think, is where you would want to be. Now,
sure.
A 70, according to Fangraphs, this is how the ranking breaks down for you to just imagine what these players are. If a player has a 70 future value, that means they're a perennial MVP candidate or generational superstar. Shohei Ohtani was listed in this as being like a 70 grade player. Okay. There's not a lot of them. All right. 60 future value player is a frontline starting pitcher or a high end regular all-star player. A 50 to 55 future value is a solid everyday major leaguer, a reliable middle of the rotation starter. A 40 to 45 future value player, platoon player, utility man, relief pitcher profile. 35 and lower, long shot organizational depth. That's how this kind of breaks down. Okay. So when you're looking at this, and you're looking at what you could potentially get out of it in terms of players, you got to start thinking about like who has these guys. You're not going to get a 70 grade player. Nobody's going to trade them. In fact, there's only one right now in the prospect rankings, and he's in the big leagues, and his name is Connor Griffin. Connor Griffin is a 70 grade player. Age 20. His risk is very high, which means the distance between his ceiling and his floor is massive. So he still thinks it's going to be. I mean, people still think he's going to be great, but that doesn't. There's no guarantee. He has an 87% chance of being a star. Connor Griffin does, according to the valuations on Fangraphs. He's the only guy available. You're not getting him, right? Are the Pirates trading him? No, Pirates are not trading him. So he's out the door. Now you're looking at teams that have a 65 future value or a 60 future value out there. The Pirates have 2 60s. Milwaukee's got 1 at 65. Baltimore's got 1 at 65. Detroit's got 2 batters that are graded at a 60 future value. The Mets have 1 pitcher at 65. His name's Nolan McLean. I think you've heard of him, Frank. Boston's got 1 hitter at a 60 future value. Miami's got 1 pitcher there. Toronto's got 1 pitcher there. The Athletics have 1 batter there. I think everybody knows who that is.
Who's the one in Miami?
The Miami pitcher future value of a 60. That would be none other than, once my screen comes back from being blank, Thomas White in AAA. Estimated time of arrival next year. Risk is very high. He's 6'5", 210 pounds. He was drafted by the Marlins in 2023. The more you know. Anyway, going back to that list, there's not a lot of those guys available, right? So now you got to start looking at like who you can get. So if you want at least 160 future value, and we start looking at teams that could afford them, it's like Pittsburgh, Detroit. Do you see Detroit trading for Mason Miller right now?
Nope.
I don't. It's Boston, who's got one of those guys. It's Miami, it's Toronto, and it's the A's. So the A's aren't a contender. You can cross them off the list. I don't think Toronto's going to trade for Mason Miller. And if they do, they ain't giving up their number 1 pitching prospect. Miami, maybe? Is Miami 1 piece away? No?
I would say I wouldn't think they would be in the market for him anyway because they just signed Pete Fairbanks over the winter. But if a guy like Mason Miller is being dangled, I'm sorry, Pete, you're our 8th inning guy now.
Like, maybe the Red Sox want an extra arm in the bullpen to go with Aroldis Chapman. You can make a deal with the Red Sox. They have 1 batter that's a 60 future value. His name is Franklin Arias. He's in Double-A. His estimated time of arrival is 2028. He's 20 years old. He's a shortstop. Get you a future shortstop. So that would be your future all-star, potentially. He's got medium risk. He's not going to be here till 2028. He's a 60 future value, which means he has a 33% chance of being a star. And as a 60 future value, he is projected to be a high-end regular all-star player. So that would be your one guy there. That's assuming the Red Sox want to trade their number 1 player. So as we have to take a break, but as we do this exercise, if that's what you're trying to get out of a Mason Miller deal, you might be SOL unless you get guys that are not going to be, quote, for sure things. And then if that's the case, I'd rather keep Mason Miller. But if you want to go even further, let's start talking about some of the trades that have been proposed, and we'll let you know whether or not you think it's fair or not. Well, what are the values for some of these guys? Did you notice I didn't mention the Yankees, who have the 26th best farm system according to Fangraphs? What would that trade look like? We'll talk about it when we come back. The All-Star break is done, which means we got something on the horizon. NFL training camps are going to start up this week, and it's officially here for some NFL players. This season could define their entire career. Shedeur Sanders is trying to prove he's the Browns' franchise quarterback. C.J. Stroud needs to take Houston deeper into the playoffs before earning a massive extension. Michael Penix Jr. has to win Atlanta's quarterback competition, while Baker Mayfield's playing for another huge payday. And there's stars like Rashee Rice, Keon Coleman, Nick Bosa, who all have different reasons why 2026 is a make or break season. Every year, training camp creates breakout stars, exposes players who aren't ready. Biggest question is simple: who handles the pressure and who lets moments slip away? Training camp begins, and so does the pressure, Frank, as we get started to start talking about the NFL season right around the corner.
Yeah, NFL training camps are officially underway, and while every player is fighting for a roster spot or a starting role, some have much more than that on the line than others. For several players around the league, this season isn't just another year, it's a defining moment for their careers, whether it's proving they're franchise quarterbacks, earning massive contract extensions, or simply just trying to keep a job. The pressure has never been higher on some of these players.
Let's talk about the quarterback position. That's always a area of, high stress and high expectations, and it always dominates the conversation. Shedeur Sanders enters perhaps the biggest season of his young career in Cleveland. Browns are still searching for the franchise quarterback, and Sanders does have an opportunity to prove he is the answer. If he develops into a reliable starter, Cleveland may no longer need to spend another high draft pick on a quarterback. I've heard that for every quarterback they've had in the last, I don't even know, probably my entire life at this point. But if he struggles, the Browns could be right back in the quarterback market next offseason. For me, this is a make or break year for Shedeur Sanders. I thought he was smoke and mirrors in college. He does throw a good ball. He is very athletic. I don't necessarily know it translates to the NFL. I thought that him getting drafted to Cleveland the Browns' reaction in their war room when he got drafted was so bizarre.
Especially after they picked Dylan Gabriel, too.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm kind of tired of this narrative already, like with Shedeur, and he might be the best quarterback in their quarterback room, considering everybody else that is there. But I just don't see him being an NFL quarterback year in and year out that can lead you to a Super Bowl. I mean, I think there's different tiers, and without getting through those tiers, I just don't see this working out for Cleveland this season. And I think they do end up having to draft another quarterback in the near future.
Yeah, I don't see it either, unfortunately for them. Cleveland's just been a revolving door for quarterbacks, and unfortunately, I don't think it changes much. Michael Penix Jr. in Atlanta, already feeling the pressure despite being a few seasons into his career. Falcons invested heavily in him, but now he has to beat out veteran Tua Tagovailoa while proving he's worthy of long-term commitment. That feels like a pretty big hill to climb. Tagovailoa wasn't necessarily horrific in Miami. Those concussions, though, kept mounting up for him, and it really kind of put him on the back foot there.
Atlanta's interesting, too, because they haven't really committed to any quarterback, right?
Other than Matt Ryan.
They sign Kirk Cousins, and then they draft Michael Penix Jr., and then Michael Penix Jr. he's been okay in Atlanta after he took over for Kirk Cousins, but then they go out and get Tua Tagovailoa on the free. I mean, they haven't been committed to really any quarterback since Matt Ryan, as you mentioned. And, I wonder if the revolving door in the backup spot always rears its ugly head with this team, where they're always, where the starting quarterback's always looking over his shoulder. You want to be able to get competition and create competition and have guys be at their best, but you also don't want to have the starting quarterback worrying about what's behind him more than just focusing on himself in the future. So I don't necessarily know Atlanta's approach to the quarterback position has been good or ideal, but it's going to be interesting to see who wins that quarterback battle, because as you mentioned, Tua wasn't bad. I mean, he's shown a lot of good signs in Miami. I think the biggest problem was he didn't have that great of an offensive line. The defense of Miami hadn't been very good. Yes, he was the benefit of a lot of weapons, but I think he's got potential to be pretty decent in Atlanta if he is protected. I think it's going to be an interesting quarterback battle there. But then there's CJ Stroud in Houston. Now he's getting close to a contract, right? I mean, he's getting close to being off of his rookie deal. His first year, I thought when he got drafted, I thought he was the best. Going into the draft, I thought he was the best option in the NFL draft that year. He proved me right in the first year, but since then, he's been very mediocre for Houston. I think Houston's defense has been able to carry them to playoff aspirations the last couple of years. I mean, they haven't taken that next step. CJ Stroud hasn't taken that next step. And to me, this is a big question mark on whether or not CJ Stroud becomes a franchise quarterback or is just a quarterback that's pretty good that might have to bounce around a bunch of teams get him to the playoffs, but he'll never be that guy to get you to the Super Bowl. This is a make or break year for that particular situation.
Yeah, he was a standout star in his rookie season. Had the issue with the first couple games and then just dominated from there. But he has really fallen off a cliff.
Studios, we know how. Obviously, we're in a position right now, Padres fans, where they are 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. Boo. That's where the crowd will boo. Boo. But that doesn't mean they can't trade away their best players. Yay! That's what I feel like the audience is right now. I feel like that's the case for Padres fans. Hey, they're 2.5 games out of a wild card. Boo! We don't want to hear that. Hey, they can still trade away all their best players. Woo! Let's go. So since we're doing that exercise today, thought I'd throw out there what players you could potentially get. Again, don't give me names of prospects. I don't care. Nobody knows how good they're going to be anyway. And this is not me saying like, oh, Padres should buy. They're like so close. I think standing pat's probably the best idea. Well, we've talked about that for weeks now.
Like I said, there's 5 levels when it comes to the deadline. All in, buy, stand pat, sell, fire sale.
Correct.
Those are the 5 levels. We're kind of at the buy, stand still. We're like teetering on that line right now.
So one of the useful frameworks you can have leading up to the trade deadline is the trade value, future value that Fangraphs puts out. And I'm going to explain that here in a second as we start talking about what you could potentially get for a Mason Miller and for all these other players. Now, the question every trade asks is, if we're going to give up Mason Miller, whenever the Padres trade an established major leaguer or anybody in baseball, they'll ask the question, how much future value am I getting back? You're not talking about talent. You're not talking about hype. You're not talking about rankings. You're talking about future value. And what Fangraphs did about it was earlier this month, on July 2nd, they tried to quantify exactly what every prospect is worth based on 20 years of history. Think of prospects like stocks. Like the easiest analogy that I can give is the stock market. Some stocks are blue chip companies, some are lottery tickets, some are penny stocks. Prospects are exactly the same. A number 8 overall prospect isn't just slightly better than a number 40 prospect. He's exponentially more valuable. And why does MLB care about surplus value? Well, this is the term that every front office uses, surplus value. So imagine 2 players. You have player A and you have player B, Frank. Player A and player B are both worth a 5 WAR, but player A is paid $40 million and player B is paid $5 million. Both help you equally on the field, but player B gives you $35 million more in value because he's cheap. At surplus value. So teams aren't buying wins, they're buying cheap wins, and that's why prospects are gold. And right now, there are some teams that are buying some cheap wins. I took all of the wins above replacement for each team in the National League. The offense and the offense and pitching combined. The Dodgers lead the National League with a 34.8 WAR. That makes sense, right, Frank? You take that number and divide it by the amount that they're spending on their luxury tax payroll. It equates to $11.4 million per 1 WAR. Brewers. I'll get to the Brewers in a second. Cubs are paying $10.26 million per WAR. Brewers are paying $11.49 million per WAR. Phillies are paying $12.93 million per WAR. Padres are paying $11.3 million per WAR. I mean, that's all part of it. D-backs are paying $12.45 million. Reds are paying $11.63 million. Giants $12.87 million. Rockies $10.99 million. Then you have the Mets, who are paying $23.31 million per 1 WAR. These are teams that are around average. The Mets are definitely overpaying per win above replacement. And then there's teams that are doing the surplus value, like the Brewers, who are paying $4.46 million per 1 WAR. They have a team WAR of 30.3, and their payroll is about $150 million. Another team with surplus value, Marlins right now, are paying $3.14 million per one WAR. They have the fourth highest WAR, according to Fangraphs, in the National League, and they are efficient because they're only spending $79 million on their payroll. So you're trying to find as much surplus value as possible, and you start looking at some of the teams like the Marlins, teams like the Cardinals, teams like the Nationals, they're all under a $6 million per one WAR. They're all getting surplus value for their players. Padres, around the average mark in the 11s, but that's what you're trying to get to. So that's why prospects are so valuable, and that's why a lot of fans want to see teams like the Padres who are struggling and have these stars and they're overpaying for wins to trade away for valuable prospects, guys that can get you more production and cost less. So if a rookie becomes a star like a Jackson Merrill in 2024, you get 6 or 7 years of control. This is before he signs the contract, right? He gets below market salary, production that would cost $150 to $200 million in free agency, you get for league minimum. And that's why teams refuse to move elite prospects. So what Fangraphs studied, which I found was very interesting, instead of guessing what the value was, they looked back over 20 years, thousands of prospects, and asked what actually happened, how many of these guys became stars, how many of these guys busted, how much more did they produce, how much money did they save teams, and instead of evaluating players emotionally, they evaluated the probabilities. And the three things they measured for this, instead of just asking, is he good? They asked three questions: surplus value, expected WAR, star odds. Surplus value is the dollar amount. How much money does this prospect save his team versus signing that production in free agency? So if I have a 5 WAR player that's getting paid, again, $4 million, $5 million, and I have a 5 WAR player in free agency that is getting $40 million, I am saving $35 million in surplus value for the player that I had as a prospect. This is obviously most important for trades, right? Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to find future value. The next one that they look at is expected WAR. How many wins above replacement should this player produce during team control? This tells you how much baseball value you're getting. And the last one is star odds, which is how likely is this player to become a legitimate star. Fangraphs defines a star as 2 seasons of at least a 4 WAR player, not just an everyday player, an actual impact player. So the most important thing about this is understanding the future value. It's obviously not the ceiling. It's the probability weighted projection. Think of it as grades in school. A 70 future value is basically straight A genius, and a 35 future value is someone who probably won't graduate. When you start thinking about these players before we talk about who they could potentially get, 70 future value, these are the unicorns. These are the Shohei Ohtanis, the Paul Skeens, guys like not too long ago, Jackson Holliday, Wyatt Langford. There may be 1 or 2 in baseball, and that's not even a guarantee for some of these guys to becoming absolute stars, like a Jackson Holliday who's struggled so far in his early years in Baltimore. Their average return is around $195 million, expected WAR 27 plus, 88% chance of being a star, almost guaranteed stars. These players almost never get traded. Hear that part again. Did you hear that last part, Frank?
Repeat it for the people in the back.
These 70 future value players almost never get traded. So if teams view one of their players as this, they're never going to trade him. So you're not going to get a 70 future value for Mason Miller. Then you go to 65 future value. That's a future superstar. That's going to save you $95 million in surplus value. He has a 40% chance of becoming a star. Think about that. Just a 40% chance of becoming a star. These are franchise-changing prospects. These are guys like Fernando Tatis Jr., potentially. 40% chance of becoming a star. 60 future value. These are premium prospects, often top 10 overall. Examples include include Dylan Cruz, Roman Anthony, Marcello Meyer when he graduated. They're worth around $70 to $82 million in surplus value, depending on pitcher or hitter. Then you got the really good prospects at 55, usually ranked top 25 to 50 in the top 100. They're worth about 45 to 55 million, and they only have a 17% chance of becoming a star. Players in the top 50, some players in the top 50 prospect rankings out of the top 100 have a 17% chance of being a player that is getting you a 4 WAR on a consistent basis. Have you already started to notice, Frank, how quickly the percentage chances of being a star drops off?
Mm-hmm.
And being a star is a consistent 4 WAR player.
Mm-hmm.
As much as people don't want to say, Fernando's a star. Like Xander is a star. Manny is a star. Now, some of these guys are not going to be stars much longer, and I think you're starting to see that this year because neither Xander nor Manny Machado are going to have a 4 WAR. But this is the value in these prospects, because I feel like you just throw out names sometimes and you hear some of these reports and go like, this guy's going to be a star. Well, if he's a 55 future value according to Fangraphs, he has a 17% chance of turning into Fernando. 17% chance. You get to the 50 future value. This is where most of the top 100 prospects live. Fans think top 100. Front office thinks average everyday regular. They're worth about $33 to $45 million in future value. Star odds 7 to 13%. That means 87 to 93% of those in the top 100 that are 50 future value do not become stars. What did Frank want in a trade for Mason Miller? 1 all-star, 2 starters, which by the way would be stars, and 2 prospects. That means you would have to get at least 3 guys in the top 100 prospects, and those guys have a 87 and 93% chance of not becoming what you want them to be. I'm telling you, it is an anomaly when this thing happens. When you trade guys that you know that are actual stars for players that have future value, it is an anomaly that you get the CJ Abrams, James Wood situation. You go even further down, 45 plus on future value. Those are prospects ranked 80 to 150. They're worth about 15 to 18 million in surplus value. Useful players, not cornerstone players. These are your Gavin Sheets. These are your guys off the bench. These are your guys that are playing, that are okay, that, every once in a while they have a good year, but not going to knock your socks off. 45 future value, usually utility players, back-end starters in the rotation, okay, middle relievers, bench bats, right? These are guys like, I don't know, Jake Cronenworth right now, maybe? Middle relievers. You're talking about guys like Wandy Peralta and Yuki Matsui, potentially. Back-end starters, you're talking about JP Sears and, maybe Randy Vasquez right now. And, those are those players. You get anything lower than this, you're looking for organizational depth, lottery ticket guys, 35 plus, almost never become meaningful major leaguers. And unfortunately for the Padres, their farm system is loaded with those right now. And that's why they're the 30th best farm system in baseball. The Yankees, who keep talking about how they're going to be all about Mason Miller, have the 25th best farm system in baseball, which means they're not going to have a lot of the guys at the top that still only have a 17% chance of becoming a superstar, a star. We're not even talking about superstar. We're talking about star. 17% chance. They're going to have more guys in this range that are basically going to be average players. So the big takeaway here is prospect value is not linear. A 160 future value prospect isn't equal to 250 future value prospects or 345 future value prospects. The quality definitely matters, and elite prospects are incredibly rare, and teams usually don't trade them. Another fascinating finding out of this, hitters are consistently worth more because pitchers get hurt, pitchers flame out, pitchers are volatile. An example would be 60 future value hitter is worth $82 million in surplus value, where a pitcher is $70 million. They get the same grade, but much different risk that's involved because of arms. But if the Padres trade a player worth about $45 million in surplus value, if Preller gets 155 future value hitter, strong return. 150 future value hitter, fair value. 345 future value prospects. The risk is spread across 3 players, which much lower the odds become very impactful contributors. So when we come back, after you know all of that, how do these guys develop? Who could the Padres get for a Mason Miller? We'll talk about that in the 11 o'clock hour. We're trying to be as informative as possible. Hopefully, I feel like one of the teachers at San Ysidro High School and then Olympian High School that had Frank Marchese in class. Are you paying attention over there?
No.
Popcorn Frank. Go ahead and pick up where we left off. I think the whole first hour, again, we're trying to be as informative as possible. This is a show that we try to give you guys as much resources and tools possible to make your own decision on things. And so we did a lot of extensive research last night and today, this morning, on evaluating prospects, because as somebody that is a fan of baseball and as somebody that, consumes content like you guys and understands the deal of like trading for players and trading prospects and trading for prospects and trying to load up a farm system, I find it difficult to really get a sense of if a trade is good or not, or if the Padres should do something or not, when you don't watch every one of these minor leaguers on a daily basis. It's almost impossible. It's also impossible when you hear reports and all the reports sound like every player that is in the minor leagues that's a top 100 prospect is going to be a stud. You have PTSD about some former players that you had traded away for future prospects that never panned out, going, whatever happened to this? I don't want to do this. You have the PTSD of trading away top prospects for rentals or for players that were going to help you in the long term. And then those prospects end up turning into really good players. So I get where fans come from. I've been there myself. I continue to be there. And so what Fangraphs has done, and I think they've done a great job of it, and they have all these extra articles out there if you really want to look at it on fangraphs.com and see the breakdowns that they have done and the research they have done to determine whether or not it is worth some of these trades. And then on top of that, you can yourself, after evaluating what the future value means and what these grades mean and what these players project to be, valuing whether or not you would do a trade. So we've talked about the future value. And based on what we learned, Frank, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Not a lot of teams trade 70 rated future value players that are superstars. Just because you're a 60 future value or higher and you're projected to be a star, which according to Fangraphs is having a 4-WAR, at least a 4-year WAR for multiple years, you still don't have a high percentage of becoming a star. A 65 future value player has a 40% chance of having a 4-WAR every single year. A 60 future value player, also in that same category, you get down to 55, you have a 17% chance. You get down to a 50 future value player, they have a 7 to 13% chance of being a star, which is a 4-WAR each and every year, which I compare to a guy like, let's just look at the Padres for a second. You look at Fernando Tatis Jr., and I have to look it up because I can't remember off the top of my head what his WAR has been for the last handful of years. But his career WAR is a 28.7, which put him in a superstar category, obviously. But he has been a consistent 4-WAR player in years that he has played full seasons. 4-WAR in 2019, 6.6 WAR in 2021, 5.2 WAR in 2023. Missed a lot of time in 2024, but was an all-star at 2.7 WAR, had a 6.1 WAR last year. This year struggling a little bit just because of the power numbers, but that is a guy that is going to be considered a star according to Fangraphs. And so I think in comparison for this is when we talk about star from here on out, we're talking about, does this player turn into a guy like Fernando? And I think that's pretty fair. And you know what? I think if you use that context, it's like, all right, if you trade Mason Miller, you would want at least one guy, right, Frank, that turns into Fernando?
Yes.
I mean, according to Fangraphs, you know who's not considered a star and is just considered an everyday player? Do you want to know? CJ Abrams.
There you go.
CJ Abrams has yet to have a 4-WAR season once in his career. They've been around 3. It's been solid, but a 4-WAR player is what they deem as a potential player that is what is considered a star. So, how do these guys usually work out before we talk about what you could get from Mason Miller? So, they ran a report last year about how every prospect is basically a lottery ticket and how these lottery tickets had gone. So, obviously, some lottery tickets have better odds than others, but they're still lottery tickets, right? There's no guarantee you're going to win. And that's the biggest takeaway from the research that they did last year around the trade deadline in 2025 is fans often believe, and Frank and I are in that particular category, if we trade an all-star, we better get a couple of top 100 prospects back. Don't you hear that narrative all the time? I mean, didn't we just say that ourselves, right? We better get some top 100 prospects. That sounds great. But statistically, there's a very real chance neither one becomes an impact player. This study that Fangraphs did last year looked at nearly 1,000 prospects from 2019 to 2022. And instead of asking, did they eventually make the Hall of Fame, which obviously is very difficult, it asked something much more useful, which was 3 years later, what kind of major league player are they projected to become? And they broke players into 5 categories: washout, backup, regular, above average, and star, which sounds a lot more practical, right? That seems more practical to me. And the numbers that came with it, and here's some shocking numbers. A prospect, this is what like a prospect fan constantly hears about. A 45 future value prospect, we talked about this, that's the kind of player ranked around 15 to 25 in an organizational system. And here's what happens. 51% of 45 future value prospects wash out completely. Over half gone. Never become meaningful MLB players. Another 25% become bench players. Only 7% of 45 future value players, above average players, are only 7% become above average players or stars. I mean, you get like 3 or 4 of these guys, right? Frank, like these are the 2 prospects that you said that you wanted included in a 5-man trade. 7% of them become above average or stars. 51% of those guys will never make it. Let's move up one category, right? To a 50 future value prospect, right? These are guys that potentially could be solid everyday major leaguers or reliable middle of the rotation starters. They could be top 100, maybe top 5 in an organization, but 23% of these players bust. 24% of them become backups. 30% of them become regulars. 21% become above average, and 2% become stars. Even in the 50 future value prospect spot, nearly half don't become impact players. Then you get to the blue chip guys. These are 55 up. Premium prospects, future top 50 in baseball. 17% of 55 future value prospects are busts. 17% become backups. That's 24% that you are just wasted. 30% become regulars. 31% become above average. Only 6% become stars, which again is a 4-WAR every single year, which is Fernando, at least. Then you get to the elite of the elite. Only around 20 hitters in baseball every year grade as a 55 future value or more. These are names everybody knows, and even they fail. A 60 future value prospect still has roughly a 26% chance of becoming a backup or worse, which sounds crazy. There are supposed to be can't miss guys, but there is no such thing as a can't miss guy. So if you get 2 top 100 prospects and you get both 50 future value prospects, history says that there's a 50% chance each one never becomes an above average player. And there's only a 4% combined chance one becomes a true star. And that's why these trades are so difficult. And that's why giving up on a Mason Miller, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. But the guys at Fangraphs put together a comparison of a trade package. They had package A, in which they got 250 future value prospects, and package B, where they got 155 and 145. And most fans would automatically choose package B because you get the higher player, because the higher ranked player sounds sexier, right? but the data says they're actually very similar overall. The difference is risk. Package B has a better chance of producing one superstar, but it also has as much better chance of producing one complete bust, whereas package A has as much better chance of producing two useful major leaguers, and this is why front offices value depth differently than fans. Why does AJ Preller love Major League Baseball players? Because he obviously knows something that we all ignore. Prospects are uncertainty. Major leaguers are certainty. A 4-WAR player in the major leagues is infinitely more valuable than a prospect who might become one. And that's why proven players cost so much. And pitchers are even scarier. A 45 future value pitcher, 53% bust. A 50 future value pitcher, which is a middle of the rotation guy, has at least a 27% chance of bust. Even highly ranked pitching prospects flame out because of injuries, command issues, velocity changes, surgeries. So we get fooled all the time because you remember the successes. We remember the successes of the Jackson Merrills, the Paul Skeens, Gunnar Henderson, Julio Rodriguez, but they forget, and we forget, the hundreds of prospects who never make it. Does anybody remember Jeter Downs, Taylor Trammell, dozens of former top 100 prospects who just completely disappeared? We like to call that survivorship bias. We remember the stars because they're visible, while the far more common failures quietly fade away. So this is why fans and us on the radio shouldn't judge a trade solely by prospect rankings, but how many legitimate prospects are coming back, how close are they to the majors, what's their future value grade, and are they hitters or pitchers? How much risk is involved with the package? So a package of 3 solid 50 future value prospects may actually be more valuable than one flashy top 20 prospect and 2 lottery tickets. What are you going to get for Mason Miller? Well, we'll talk about the Yankees deal that they decided to, that we've seen time and time again, and where there might be another move that might be more valuable. We'll get to that when we come back. Would the SEC actually leave the NCAA? That idea sounded impossible a few years ago, but SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey says the conversations are real. The SEC is frustrated with inconsistent NIL rules, transfer portal enforcement, and the overall direction of college athletics. While Sankey says the conference still prefers competing for a national championship under one governing body, he warned that unless the NCAA becomes more consistent, those discussions will continue. I don't necessarily think a breakaway would be good for college football. Sport is at its best when every conference competes for one national championship. The NCAA does need improvement, but splitting college football into separate systems could create an even bigger problem. So the big question is, do you think the SEC should stay with the NCAA, or is it time for college football's biggest conference to go on its own way? I don't necessarily know if that even works out for the SEC. I mean, I think they continue to puff their chest out and say, we're going to leave, but I don't think they have the leverage they think they have, because I don't know if they become their own little league and it just becomes like a semi-pro football league. Does anybody really care? I mean, if they just become the XFL, right? Like, does anybody really care about what they're doing? I just think this could be catastrophically bad for the SEC on top of the NCAA. But if I had to pick one side that was going to survive the most, I would pick the rest of college athletics over just one conference that thinks that they could do everything by themselves.
Yeah, and this is all coming through SEC Media Days, as Greg Sankey, SEC Commissioner, did not shy away from one of the biggest questions at SEC Media Day when asked whether discussions about the SEC separating from the NCAA were simply a negotiation tactic. Sankey straightforward answered, they're real. According to Sankey, the conversation stemmed from growing frustration over how college athletics is currently being managed, not an attempt to gain leverage. The SEC believes inconsistent enforcement of eligibility rules, NIL regulations, tampering investigations, and the implement of the House settlement have created uncertainty across not just college football, but college athletics as a whole, While Sankey emphasized that the SEC still values competing for a national championship under one governing body, he also warned that if the NCAA can't provide consistent leadership, conversations about alternative models will only continue. And I can't help but agree that at least the reasons why he would break away are good. They're worthy. I'm more aligned with you that if the SEC were to break away from the NCAA, that doesn't really help anybody.
I don't think it does at all. I don't think they hold the leverage that they think they do. And on top of that, I especially don't when Congress is trying to fix a lot of the problems that the NCAA has, but in doing so, wants to make sure everybody is accountable and held to the same standard. And the SEC, the Big Ten want to be, they want to have their separate rules, right? They don't like the fact that conference realignment is capped. Right. Like Congress doesn't want to have these super conferences in college athletics, and they're trying to put a damper on that. They're trying to pool the media rights together. They're trying to make everything uniform in college athletics, but the Big Ten and the SEC still want to be the big dog and get all the money to themselves. And they still want to be a big reason why the NCAA has a lot of problems. So I find a lot of this to be eyewash, that they want the best for college, whatever. They want the best for themselves, and they're not willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the sport, which I find too many organizations across the board are doing. And I can even talk about the high school stuff here in town about how individuals are holding back progress in San Diego when it comes to the betterment of high school football. And the SEC, and I think the Big Ten, are holding back for the betterment of college football, and they're trying to, be the holier than thou. But I mean, I don't think they're actually going to leave. I know the NCAA faces a lot of pressure right now that they have to fix a lot of the things that they need to fix, need help with the government. And if the SEC and the Big Ten are going to drag their feet the whole way, it's, say what you want about wanting all these things fixed, but you have to do your part too.
Yep.
And that's where I kind of lose it. And that goes into the playoff expansion conversation, which is the next topic. I mean, obviously that isn't a done deal. The SEC is holding back again because they only look out for themselves, which I guess is their right, but for the betterment of college athletics, which I think everybody would benefit from an expanded playoff and really centralizing a lot of the rules. The SEC doesn't want to go to 24 teams like everybody else does. They want to be able to control who's in the playoff. They want the easiest path. They want the most money. I whatever they decide to get, whatever they need to get sweetened on to change this. I find everything coming out of SEC media days going, we're the greatest thing that's ever happened to college athletics turn into. What are the chances these guys turn into? I just want to be frank. I just want to be informative before people start throwing out, got to trade for a haul. You got to trade for a haul. Based on all that information, which was a lot, I don't necessarily know if you get a haul ever. It seems very rare, Frank, that you actually get, quote, a haul at the trade deadline.
No, exactly. And that's part of the reason why this conversation is just so tiring. It's like, guys, he's not going anywhere. He's not, especially with the situation the Padres are in. If this is a situation, if we're talking about this 10 years ago, then yeah, he's gone. But with the guys that you have on this roster right now, there's no shot that they're trading him. I'm sorry. It's not happening. And I don't care how many people, I don't care if it's Bob Nightingale, I don't care if it's Jeff Passan, the amount of nonsense that is continuously spewed to get Mason Miller to the Yankees specifically is just, it's just talk. It's just noise. He's not going anywhere.
I don't think so either. And we've already broken down how, maybe we could get rid of Xander's contract. $25 million is nothing now.
And we're talking about trading Xander Bogaerts. I saw it in the chat earlier. We're talking about trading Xander Bogaerts straight up for Francisco Lindor.
To add more money.
The fans who want to get rid of payroll, we got way too much money tied up in all these contracts. Yeah. You would be adding $9 million more per year.
I mean, I look at, I was going through it's hard to look at the future when it comes to money, because you don't know what the salary cap's going to be if they have one. even if they don't have a salary cap, they stick with the luxury tax. The only thing that really prevents you from spending money is the AAV. Obviously, there's individual years where you have to pay guys a lot of money. That does add up. It's not like you have unlimited funds, right? I mean, they still have to have the money. But based on the information we have on the new ownership group in coming up, and they have all this money to spend, they can absorb a lot of the like $39 million a year that Machado's about to make. But you know what Machado accounts for to the AAV? And I'm not saying this is justifiable. I'm not saying this is a deal. It's $31 million. Xander Bogaerts, $25 million. I mean, yes, it does all add up eventually, but these are not crazy AAV numbers like they used to be. I mean, if you had to pick one contract on there that is like the worst contract, I'm sorry, it's not Xander's, it's Manny's.
Yeah, I Need Money missed the last hour of our show yesterday. It's not getting rid of payroll, it's getting a better player. Did we not just say yesterday that Xander Bogaerts over the last 3 years has given you more than what he's getting paid per year as far as value for money?
I Need Money just wants Lindor on the team. Based on the comments that he had yesterday in the YouTube chat. But again, when you start looking at the overall payroll of things, I mean, we don't know where the luxury tax, or we don't know where the salary cap is going to be. We don't know where the salary floor is going to be. We don't even know if they're going to have either of those things, right? And until you know that number, it's going to be hard to really evaluate whether or not a contract is good or not. Because at that point, you're accounting for what percentage of the cap you are spending money on. It's like in the NFL. Bad contracts in the NFL are ones where the guy, you're spending a lot of money on positions that don't matter, right? Like, you're going to have to spend top dollar on a quarterback, but you kind of need that to be really good. And so it's okay to have guys like Patrick Mahomes make high percentage of your overall cap in order to, and when you fill out your team. And he's obviously one of the best. I mean, we talked about CJ Stroud on one of our updates. CJ Stroud is going into a contract year, and he has shown that he can win in the playoffs, but he wants to show that he can, be a team that can get a team to the Super Bowl, or be a player that can get a team to the Super Bowl, and he get that kind of money. And if you have that ability, you can account for most of the salary cap, but then other areas suffer, right? A bad contract in the future is going to be like if Xander Bogaerts accounts for 25%, a quarter or more of your overall spending, then it would be a bad contract. But as things are right now, $25 million a year, that's kind of the going rate for a shortstop that is the level that is Xander Bogaerts, which again goes to why you want to draft and develop and not give away every prospect if possible. But I mean, if you're talking about, because people just want to see his contract go away even for like half the money. I mean, what's nonsensical is about to go to a salary cap year and have half of the money you owe to Xander Bogaerts hitting your cap for the next however many years.
I Need Money. Xander Bogaerts has never had a negative WAR in his career. In his time with the Padres, is 4.6, 2, 3.2, 1.5 so far this year.
Anything over a 4 for multiple years is considered a star. He's like right there, which no one wants to believe. It's funny how the people use stats for that's what makes baseball fun and baseball not fun, is those particular situations of I can use stats to manipulate whatever my argument is. And everybody does it. I mean, we do it too. But let's look at some of these. Have you seen some of these trade proposals like for the Yankees to the Padres? Right? I mean,
too many of them.
Let's just start talking about, and I don't. If Mason Miller gets traded, I don't think it's to the Yankees because I don't think the Yankees give you anything close to what that brings any type of value. Okay, they have the 25th best farm system in baseball according to Fangraphs. They have 2 players in the 50 future value spot, which is George Lombard Jr. and it's Dax Kilby, right? We talked about what a 50 future value player is. A 50 future value prospect. So if the Padres got the top 2 position player prospects from the Yankees, they're legitimate prospects, right? They're both maybe top 100 prospects. They're both top 5 in the organization. They have a 23% chance of being a bust and a 24% chance of being a backup, which gives them a 47% chance of not even being an everyday starter, which is less than a 4 WAR a year. They only have a 30% chance of doing that and a 21% chance of being above average and a 2% chance of being a star, which is a 4 WAR player consistently for more than 2 years. That's with those guys. And if those are the best 2 players that can sweeten the pot for a Mason Miller trade.
You said Dax Kilby?
Right. Isn't he like their second prospect?
He's in rookie ball.
Right. He's super young, but he's like a very he's also, by the way, had shoulder issues. He's missed most of the time this year due to injury. He has had multiple injuries already in his career. I mean, I'm not interested. It's not, that doesn't interest me. Trading for Ryan Weathers doesn't interest me. Trading for Jason Dominguez and what he hits as a player doesn't interest me. Neither does Spencer Jones. There is nobody that the Yankees can come up with that interests me in a Mason Miller trade unless they give up Cam Schlittler, who they're not going to give up. And if George Lombard Jr., who has a 47% chance of not being a starter on how he's evaluated, is untouchable, I'm sorry. I got no interest in trading with the Yankees for Mason Miller. I would rather have Mason Miller on my team than trade for that. Those are the options, right? It's like, here's a guy that has a 47% chance of not even being an everyday starter for a guy that is the best closer in baseball. No, thank you. Is that nonsensical thinking on my part? Am I trying to hang on to Mason Miller too long? I don't think so, Frank.
No.
I don't think that's a good deal.
No, it's stupid.
Neither is adding bats that you currently already have. What is adding Spencer Jones, who, by the way, here's what I got to say about Spencer Jones and for Jason Dominguez. Again, I love the fact that Spencer Jones is a local guy. We have family connections. But the reality is Aaron Judge is hurt right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means it is up to the other guys to kind of step up and fill that void of Aaron Judge, which I know is hard. They don't have to equate the numbers to what Aaron Judge is doing, but he is an outfielder. You have Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez to help lessen the blow, and they have both failed to do so to the point where Spencer Jones is still in AAA and Jason Dominguez is hitting like 220. And the Yankees, since Aaron Judge has been placed on the injured list, has turned into the worst offensive team in Major League Baseball. And you're going to take 2 guys from that team, and you're going to take maybe a George Lombard Jr. and a Dax Kilby or any of these pitchers that project to be mid-rotation arms, and that's who you're going to bring in? Just a bunch of mediocrity? I'm sorry. That's not a trade that interests me. Now, when you start looking at other teams that can afford Mason Miller, I look at teams like the Pirates. They have prospects to trade. Tampa Bay, Milwaukee. These are the top 3 farm systems in baseball. Next farm systems, Baltimore. They're not in the market for a starter right now. Detroit, who is contemplating whether or not they trade Skubal. I don't think they're in the market. Mets have the 6th highest farm system in baseball according to Fangraphs. Are the Mets in a position right now to trade for a closer? Probably not.
No, they're about to do what Minnesota did last year. They're about to trade they're about to get rid of everything that's not tied down.
Then you got the Dodgers, who I don't think any Padres fan wants to see the Padres trade Mason Miller to the Dodgers, right? Cleveland, Boston, St. Louis are your top 10. Maybe Boston. There's like one guy that's a 60 future value player or higher. So that's kind of like where you're at. Seattle's got a handful of prospects, but they're ranked 16th in Major League Baseball's farm system rankings. I mean, to me, it comes down to Pittsburgh, Tampa, Milwaukee. And if you look at Pittsburgh, they got two pitchers that are future value of a 60, which means they're going to be middle of the what is the evaluation of a 60 pitcher? I think it's a middle rotation. They have a 21% chance of being a star. Frontline starting pitcher at a 60. Okay, frontline starting pitcher. It's Bubba Chandler and Seth Hernandez. Now, Seth Hernandez is a high A player. Seth Hernandez is a high risk player, but he's moving up. He's 20 years old, young, controllable. You're not going to see him until 2028, maybe, because he ranks third in the organization. But they're not giving up Bubba Chandler for Mason Miller. Absolutely not. There's no way. So maybe you get a Seth Hernandez. I don't necessarily the Pirates would do that, but you get a Seth Hernandez, which would be one of the 60 future value. I think you would have to get at least 150 future value player, which would be Edward Florentino.
We're not saying that Mason Miller is the face of the team. He is the biggest name that this team can trade. That is what this conversation is surrounding.
Edward Florentino, future value, 2029 ETA. Maybe you get one of him. Maybe you get him too. I mean, again, he's a 2029 estimated time of arrival. So you get two of those guys. You hope one of them works out. Maybe they do give up Bubba Chandler. I don't, has he not been good? Everybody kept telling me he was the second coming of Christ again. But
it's every young player.
Every young player. Those are two players you would have to get. And then, you throw in some of these 45 future value picks that are like, God. Okay. But what?
Bubba Chandler's 3-8 with a 477.
Yeah. That's one of the 60 future value pieces. Remember when he came up? They're like, oh, look how great this rotation is.
Because he went 4-1 last year.
So if that's all you can get.
4-1 with 4 starts in 7 outings.
Yeah, Bubba Chandler's got a 0.9 WAR so far. He's got a 4.58 ERA. He's only 23. So maybe.
He's got 50.
And walks a ton of people.
Brother's got 55 walks.
That's brutal. You know who has 55 walks? Almost everybody on this Padres team. You'd be trading for another guy.
55 walks to 85 strikeouts. Opponents hitting 230 against him.
So the Pirates are out.
Pass
on the Pirates, potentially giving you anything.
56 runs allowed, 50 of them earned.
But he is the 60 future value player that the Pirates have. That makes them one of the top organizations in farm system rankings. And the other one is Connor Griffin. And a 60 pitcher right there is expected 11 WAR and a 21% chance of being a star. And the Pirates have 3 of those players. They're the number 1 farm system rank. And you go through there, and 2 of the guys, one of them, they're not going to trade. One of them has future value where he's not only going to come up in 2028, which doesn't help your window. And the other one was expected to be really good and has since been not very good. Well, there goes Pittsburgh. Tampa Bay is the second highest ranked farm system in Major League Baseball. They have 4 hitters that are ranked as a grade 50 future value player, and a grade 50 future value player means he is a solid everyday major leaguer.
Maybe you could find some interest in Braxton Ashcraft from Pittsburgh. He's 9-4 with a 3.95 ERA, so still a little high. 28 walks to 130 strikeouts. Opponents are hitting 245 against him though, so that's not much better.
So now you're looking at I moved on to the Rays because I don't think the Pirates would do that trade. I think they would have to give up something a little bit more than what they might be willing for. But then you get to the Rays. The Rays have, it's 4 of their players rank as a 50 future value, which is you're hoping he could be a everyday major leaguer, right? A 50 future value prospect. This is the same situation as George Lombard Jr., though, and Dax Kilby. They have a 47% chance of becoming a player that doesn't play. The Rays have 4 of those guys. And those 4 players, Frank, are not expected to get to the big leagues until 2028, 2031, and then Carson Williams, who was expected to get up to the big leagues this year, who's in AAA, who has now trended backwards this season at age 23. Anything on the Rays really tickle your fancy? They're one of the highest ranked farm systems in baseball. At number 2. Maybe it's Milwaukee.
Junior Caminero.
We'll talk about Milwaukee when we come back. Because everybody keeps pointing to Milwaukee being the team that everybody wants to be and being the team that has the picks, has the prospect capital to get Mason Miller. We'll try to put a deal together with the Brewers when we come back. 11:41 on a Tuesday. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. The Braden Surprenant Show. Setting us over at Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Obviously spent a lot on this, but this seems to be like the most glaring topic right now for the Padres, more than the catcher's interference last night. Would you agree with that? I mean, I just feel like this is the talking point of this team right now, as much as it might get irritating to talk about. I'm running out of teams here that can afford Mason Miller. Are you experiencing that too? Are you starting to understand that as well?
I understood that about a week and a half ago when this conversation really kicked off.
Right. I'd agree with that as well. I just, again, the players that you think you're going to get, I don't think you're necessarily going to get. I just think a lot of people assume that you're going to get CJ Abrams and James Wood, but I'm just saying, like, those are very few and far between assets that get traded at the trade deadline.
Okay. Well, let's just address something really quick in the chat. I need money. Detroit pizza's not that bad.
No, it's good. It's pretty solid.
Yeah,
it's better than Chicago-style pizza. I'd tell you that right now.
We'll give Detroit that. So the other things, I mean, I like Eminem. I know he's not everyone else's cup of tea.
I don't mind Eminem.
Lions aren't great. We know that. Detroit pizza, it's not the worst. Can be better for sure, but it's not the worst. Sorry, continue.
Squirrel!
If you're going to say something about pizza and have a take on pizza,
it has to pass through.
Frank will always sniff that out.
It has to pass through the New York funnel.
That's right. Just saying. Okay. Pittsburgh, I don't think has what you want. Again, we've talked about this. You want an all-star, 2 starters, and 2 guys that will never make it. I mean, you might as well just throw that in there. It's like, hey, we need some volume to like help our farm system out. But it's like, if you get anybody that's a 40 to 45 future value player, just admit we want 2 guys that are never going to make it to the pros. That's literally what you're signing up for. So you're really trying to do that to get a couple other guys. I mean, the one all-star is going to be hard to find, getting a 60 future value plus. Let's talk about Milwaukee. Milwaukee's got the 3rd best prospect rankings, farm system rankings in Major League Baseball. They only have 1 guy above a 60 future value, and that is Jesus Made. Is it Mod or Made? Made? Adam knows. He knows about the minor leagues very much. He is like the number 2 prospect in all of baseball. The thing that has made Milwaukee so successful is it's Mahdi. The thing that has made Milwaukee so successful is not trading those type of players, which tells me, Frank, what are they not going to do? They're probably not going to trade Jesus Mahdi, who is the number 2 overall prospect in all of baseball and the number 1 prospect in the Brewers system. If they trade him, I'd definitely be like, yeah, I'm in. But even him, go back to the chart. I'm going to point to the sign. Tap sign. 65 future value. Still has a roughly 26% chance becoming a backup or worse. And those are guys that are supposed to be can't miss guys. Which, by the way, I did this exercise last year on a sense of like trading some of these dudes for stars, right? This still applies to guys like Leo DeVries, by the way. I mean, I just think we have all accepted the fact that Leo is going to be the greatest thing that's ever happened just because like it worked out with CJ Abrams and James Wood for the Nationals, it seems like at this point, although CJ Abrams has yet to put up a 4-WAR year. But DeVries is listed as a 60 future value piece, which puts him at a 26% chance he doesn't turn into anything. And he's listed as a player that, you know, he's still listed as a guy that if he has a 33% chance of becoming a star, which is a 4-WAR plus. I mean, think about that for a second. DeVries, Leo DeVries, one of the best prospects in baseball, Frank. He has a 30% chance, 33% chance of having a 4-WAR year every year in the big leagues. That's not like high odds. So going back to Milwaukee, you're not going to get Motti for him, for Mason Miller. Their next best guy is a 55 future value, which is solid, would be Luis Pena, which is the second highest prospect in the Brewers system. That gets you a estimated time of arrival shortstop of 2028. He's 19 years old. Maybe you trade Mason Miller for him, but he's not going to help you until 2028 at the earliest. At the earliest. And then that's just one piece. Who else are you going to get out of that deal? Couple of the other guys that won't make it. Is that worth the trade just to get the one guy that might help you in 2028? Which goes into my logic again, too, Frank, about this because people think that you can compete next year if you trade like Mason Miller away. Where are you going to get everybody to backfill when the best prospects available for a lot of these teams are going to be players that don't help you for the next couple of years?
To me, it's just the more and more we talk about it, the more and more laughable the concept of trading Mason Miller becomes.
I agree.
It really is. It becomes worse and worse and worse. I saw it. I didn't hear it.
Again, like with all of these deals that potentially come up, even if you got like a bunch of quantity from an organization with average major league players, I would take the elite bullpen arm over a bunch of average bats. Over a bunch of average arms that I currently already have and has put me into a problem as it already stands.
Coas text in the chat, are you willing to pay over $20 million for an elite closer? There's a very real possibility that if everything goes the way we're expecting it to go with this new collective bargaining agreement, nobody will be paying $20 million for an elite closer ever again.
Yeah, I don't know how you would be able to do that in reality. Like if you had, what was the latest salary cap proposal that they had? Do you remember?
It was 275, I think.
Is that what it was?
Something like that. 250, 270. I'm not sure.
Let me look it up. So MLB proposed a comprehensive salary cap and floor system, a hard cap of $243 million and a hard floor of $171.
I knew the floor was higher than what was projected. I didn't realize that the cap would be that low. But
remember, like they had the superstar contract limits and minimum salary increase and stuff like that. So like free agent contracts at 5 years for players switching teams, max of 15% of the cap, and 6 years for re-signed cornerstone players, max of 16% of the cap. I mean, is anybody going to give a closer 15% of the cap? I mean, probably not, which is $36 million. You would have to get to a point. I mean, if you're giving them, $20 million of the, you're looking at like still a high percentage of the salary cap going to a closer. I just don't think anybody's really going to do that. And here's the other thing too, like for people saying like Mason Miller is definitely available. Of course he's available. If the Brewers decided to trade you Jesus Motti and like 2 starting pitchers, wouldn't you take that like immediately? I mean, I think the Padres are in a position of go ahead and try to create a bidding war for Mason Miller, knowing that you don't have to trade him. And I think that bodes well for the Padres during the trade deadline because teams might get desperate and throw something out there. But I still don't think they trade him because I don't think you're going to get anything back in return that's going to be worth helping your team for the next 2 or 3 years. And that's kind of what the entire portion of this exercise has been. Is it doesn't make a lot of sense. And Frank, I agree with you. The more we talk about this, the less I'm like, you know what? This is a great idea. I don't think it's a great idea at all.
No, it's content. That's all it is at this point. It's become nothing but content. There's no substance to it. It's really frustrating to continue to hear. everyone is available for the right price. And we kind of said it the first time this was brought up, is that everyone's available for the right price, but Miller has been so good, so historically good, that he's priced himself too high to be traded, and that anyone who was willing to make that trade, to make that deal, is the guy who has him. And that's it.
And to me, the value is I would still rather have, even though he's a closer and even though you got to find other spots and all this other stuff, I know all of that. I would rather have him as an elite closer and build a bullpen around him, which doesn't cost a lot of money in free agency, over having 4 mediocre players that you're going to get frustrated watching and getting 4 more players that you currently, 4 guys that you already have. I mean, that's what you're trading for. I just think we can always put players in this pedestal, this future promise of like, this guy's going to be a stud, but even guys that they project to be studs have low percentages of actually doing that. And the ones that are players that are probably going to make it that far, as mentioned in Fangraphs, those players don't get what? Traded. They don't get traded. They never get traded.
There are also guys that come out of nowhere that you never expect, that you never predict, that aren't on top 30 prospects. Those players are few and far between as well. But there are guys that you never hear of that make it big as well.
Yeah, like Bill in the YouTube chat. Man, Abrams has 22 home runs, 72 RBIs, 275 average. How can he not have over a 4 WAR? His defense is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, WAR is the overall evaluation of the player, and C.J. Abrams has never made it over a 4 WAR in his career because his defense is so bad. And that's why in one of the recent trade rumors from Mark Feinsand talked about how Abrams really projects to be a second baseman in the future because his defense isn't very good. I mean, this is Abrams, as much as everybody is like all upset about not having him on the team, which these are his numbers. In 2023, at a 3.5 WAR, 96 OPS plus. Anything under 100 is a below average player in Major League Baseball. Anything above 100 is an above average player. In 2024, at age 23, is an all-star, 3.3 WAR, 109 OPS plus. 2025, 3.3 WAR, 109 OPS plus. 2025, 3.2 WAR, 138 OPS plus. That's this season. In 2026, at age 25, this is the best year that he has ever had. And again, when you think about it from the Juan Soto perspective, Frank, is he anywhere close to what Juan Soto was as a National? No, he's nowhere close. So when we come back, we'll get to our sports thread, let you know what's going on in sports that is not baseball. 2 hours left on the deal. We'll also hear from Mike Gosling, former MLB player, joins us next. You know, everybody's all worried about the Padres not hitting home runs. The Padres don't need to hit home runs to win games. The home runs are going to come. It's finding different ways to win.
This is the Braden Surprenant Show.
New lunchtime hour on the Fan. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. Static is number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We're broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios. We know how. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. It's not Big Bank Banking. It's better. And joining me now, well, my partner over at USD for men's baseball. He is my color analyst. He is also a former big league player. Made it to the College World Series 3 times as a college pitcher. Had a nice MLB career playing for teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks and throughout a couple other organizations. He is now in litigation as a litigator, but he is a very good baseball man and one that's very curious to talk to as well. His name is Mike Gosling. He joins me on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. Mike, haven't talked since the end of the USD baseball season. What's going on? How's your summer been?
I know. I miss you, Braden. That was real fun this spring, calling games with you, getting out there, able to talk baseball. Summer's going real well. I'm riding the highs and lows of the Padres like I know you are. I've been tuning in a little this morning. Seems like we got this Mason Miller trade situation all figured out, so glad to hear that. But it's been going great. Real nice summer. Hope you're having a good one as well, and happy to talk to you today.
Yeah, let's first talk a little bit about just you as a player and how you made it through to the big leagues and your college career and kind of introduce you to our audience a little bit. Couple of times drafted by the Twins out of high school, drafted by the Diamondbacks out of Stanford, went to Stanford, got to compete at a high level, got to go to the College World Series. What was your college baseball experience like, for a lot of people that might not know who you are?
Yeah, college experience was great. So I came out of high school in Salt Lake City, Utah. So Found my way out here to California to go to Stanford. At the time, it was the clear leader in combination of academics and baseball program. We were always a top 5, top 10 program. I think it still has potential to get back there, but of course, college sports landscape has changed a lot. So a lot of different dynamics in play now. But at the time, it was the Pac-12 conference, or excuse me, Pac-10 actually, when I played in it. We got to play against USC, UCLA, Arizona State. I mean, great competition every weekend in conference play. We'd go on non-conference trips to Florida State and Texas. So it was high caliber baseball, and at the same time, good education. Got to come out to California. So it was a great time. We went to the national championship game my sophomore and junior year. This is back when it was a 1-game championship that you come out of your bracket in the College World Series. And then instead of a best of 3 like it is now, it's just 1 game for all the marbles. My sophomore year, I did not pitch, and we got walked off by LSU. And we lost a lot of guys to the draft that year. And so we never really thought we'd be back, but had a great year my junior year. Got back to the national championship game. I got the starting nod, and I thought, all right, we're going to get redemption for getting walked off last year. And then I gave up a whole bunch of runs in very few innings to start the game, and it was pretty much over before it got going against Miami. So that was heartbreaking, but still an incredible experience to be able to play at that level. I mean, back then, that was the only time you could get on TV in college. Those games were on ESPN, and then the national championship game on CBS, and pitching in front of 20,000 people. That was, the only way you could do that back then was getting to the College World Series. So to have that experience as a 20-year-old was pretty incredible.
Sorry, with Mike Gosling, former Major League Baseball player, now a color analyst at the University of San Diego. Talking some Padres baseball here in a second. But Mike, I mean, you ended up getting drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you wrote a pretty cool piece for Sports Illustrated a while back about the top 9 moments of my completely forgettable MLB career. You're a very humble person, Mike, as I've gotten to know, but making it to the big leagues and pitching in the big leagues is a very big accomplishment for a lot of people out there. And you had a very fun and exciting Major League debut at Dodger Stadium as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's a fun story. I've heard it before, but tell us what it was like making your Major League debut. It was a lot of fireworks, if I recall properly.
Yeah, it was a lot of fireworks. I mean, I've been listening to your broadcast here today, and you guys are exactly right. Just how difficult it is to, peg who's going to really make it. Prospects are just that. They're prospects. They're not guaranteed things. I was a prospect when I got drafted. It was great to get drafted. I then had shoulder surgery. It took me back a notch, and I really had to battle my way to getting to the big leagues at all after that. And I did, and I'm proud of that. It was a completely forgettable career. There's been enough big leaguers that have come and gone that, nobody outside of my family remembers really anything I did. But, to your point, I wrote this article and tried to reflect on some of my fun times in the big leagues. And number one in the article was that debut at Dodger Stadium. I was on the Diamondbacks. We were not good. Dodgers were, of course. They always seem to be, and they were even back in 2004. I came in to pitch maybe the 6th or 7th inning, gave up a broken bat single to Brent Maine, I still remember, to start my career. And I got a couple outs, and then Steve Finley came up. He'd been on the Diamondbacks earlier in the year, got traded over to the Dodgers. And I thought I'd surprise him with a first pitch curveball. He'd never expect that, right? Well, he did. He hit it out. He grunted as he did it. And so that sucked. The next guy was Milton Bradley. He hit a line drive single. So a couple of hard hit balls in a row. So the pitching coach, Mark Davis, came out and said, all right, Adrian Beltre's up now. Got to calm you down here a little bit. You can jam Beltre, but you really got to get it in there. If you let him get his arms extended, he's going to do damage. So I really got it in there, and I put it right between his shoulder blades, my best fastball of the day so far. I mean, I was so nervous. I was just sweating profusely. Obviously, I'm not trying to hit the guy, but it looks really bad when you give up a homer and then a single and then get a mound visit from the pitching coach. And then the first pitch after the mound visit, you drill the best guy in the other lineup. So Beltre, I think, decided whether it was worth his time to come out and just pound me down. And thankfully, I think my catcher and the umpire talked him out of that and pointed out that I was just shaking in my boots out there and wasn't trying to start something. So he went down to first, and next up was Sean Green. I mentioned in my article, that this was important because he was a left-handed hitter. When I got nervous, my palm got sweaty. I was a left-handed pitcher. I'd often miss up and in to a lefty. And I thought, if I panic here and hit Sean Green in the face right after hitting Adrian Beltre, I think the only guy that Dodgers fans loved more at the time than Adrian Beltre was Sean Green. I'm never going to make it out of this inning. This is going to be it for my career and maybe my life. And so somehow, some way, I just threw a weak fastball way outside, and he swung at it and grounded out, and I got out of there and was able to finally take a breath and got through that first inning. And then I got a second inning that went a little smoother. But man, oh man, that was quite an introduction to the big leagues. In Dodger Stadium, of all places, you're looking up from the mound. There's 4 decks behind home plate. It is as intimidating as it gets. But in retrospect, it was a lot of fun and makes for a good memory now that it's 20 plus years in the past.
Had a fun career, obviously, and got to be teammates with a lot of great players out there. You got to pick a lot of the great players' brains. I know you got to play with Randy Johnson a little bit. And that was a year that was interesting. It was like in the early 2000s, and the Diamondbacks, as you mentioned, were not very good, very young. Randy Johnson was still on the team. And, he was a star that, according to you, kind of helped out a lot of the young guys. What was it like playing with Randy Johnson?
It was incredible. As a left-handed pitcher, to get to share a clubhouse with Randy Johnson was a dream come true for sure. And, I knew his reputation from the outside looking in, gruff, not particularly friendly, not particularly talkative. But inside the safety of the clubhouse, he was a different guy and was real generous and kind. And, he had played on great teams. He just won the World Series a few years before. He didn't need to be good to this new group of rookies that was on a rebuilding bad Arizona Diamondbacks club. He could have just completely gone about his business and never given anybody the time of day. Nobody would have blamed him for that or thought anything of it. But he didn't. He was welcoming and encouraging, asked me questions about myself. So many times you assume a superstar is only going to be interested in himself, but he was interested in other people, even just kind of this, scrub new pitcher coming up. So really awesome experience. He departed for the Yankees the next year. That was a little bit of a rocky tenure there in New York. But I certainly call myself lucky to have gotten to watch him pitch every 5 days there for that short period of time and get to know him a little bit as a person.
We're talking with Mike Gosling, former Major League Baseball pitcher, current analyst for ESPN Plus over at the University of San Diego. Let's talk a little bit about this Padres team. I know you, being now living in here in San Diego for a long time, and I know never playing for the Padres, but now have found himself, rooting for the Padres and watching them on a daily basis. From your perspective of where they're at right now, losing record, but 2.5 games back. And you're not down in the clubhouse, you can't say, but for somebody that has been in a big league clubhouse, in teams that might not be performing up to expectations, what's usually the mindset in the clubhouse when you're still within reach of a wild card spot? As much as a lot of fans might want to, see players get traded away and focus on the future, the mindset is still the playoffs for most of the players in that clubhouse being so close out of a wild card, I would imagine.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That's the mindset. That's the goal. Get to the playoffs. I think there's steps along the way there. I actually was in a similar situation in 2005 with the Diamondbacks. We ended up with a losing record, and I was just up and down. I certainly was not a key member of that team. But I was up in July, about this time of year. We were a couple games under 500, but the division wasn't great. The National League wasn't great. And it was similar. We were, close enough to be sticking around, but an under 500 team. And I actually have a distinct memory of Craig Counsell, who was on that team, saying, let's get to 500 before we start worrying about any of this stuff. We got to be at least a 500 ball club before we can start talking about ourselves as a playoff team. So yes, playoffs is the ultimate goal, but where the Padres sit right now, a couple games under, first short focus is getting back to 500. They had it. They've now, since the break, lost it again. But they got to climb that little bit of hill. The rest of the league's doing them a favor. And if they can get back to 500, hey, they might be in a wild card spot or a half game out of a wild card spot by that point. But I think that should be the real short-term focus. And then it's just tricky because, you guys have been talking about it. There's years where you're an obvious buyer. There's years where you're an obvious seller. And there's years where it's mixed. And I think the Padres are in a situation where it's mixed. They've got, a lot of long-term deals that limits their flexibility. Obviously, Mason Miller's out there. I agree with what I've been hearing you guys say. I don't think he's going anywhere from a purely personal standpoint. I would like to see him stick around because, with that much more team control, I think it's going to be hard getting value back for him. And I think it's different when you trade somebody who's going to be gone at the end of the year anyway. I think that sends a different message than trading somebody who's under team control for a few more years. So, we'll see what they do. Your guess is as good as mine. If anything, I'd like to see him maybe try to sell high on somebody who's going to be out at the end of the year, potentially like an Adrian Morejon. I mean, we see teams overpay sometimes for bullpen help down the stretch because it's so important. So he could be somebody nice to dangle out there. But yeah, right now, I think the first focus has to be to finish this road trip strong, come back home as a 500 ball club, and then see what they can make happen there.
We're talking with former big leaguer Mike Gosling, who joins us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. I do want to talk about the starting staff. I mean, you're somebody that has started games in the big leagues. You're somebody that has been in the bullpen. A lot of inconsistencies with some of these guys. I want to start with younger product and Randy Vasquez. He got off to such a great start after finishing last fall so well. It seems like location has been a little bit off. He went on the injured list. They have now brought him back to the bullpen. Can getting sent to the bullpen help out in the future for starts at a point of trying to fix some things? His bullpen outing was good, or coming out in relief for 3 innings of shutout ball over the weekend. What have you seen out of Randy Vasquez when things were going right to compared to when things were going wrong? Obviously, you're not down there to an extent, but as a starting and relief pitcher, viewing from a distance, what has been the biggest problem for Randy Vasquez from your eyes?
It's hard for me to say with him in particular because I just don't watch closely enough to see the fine little differences that, change success into failure or vice versa. And really at the big league level, that's what it is. I mean, it's fine changes. It's not big stuff. It's little location misses here. It's a tick off the fastball there. What's causing that? Unless you're in it with him every day, it's hard to say. Could be a little bit of an injury thing that maybe he's now worked through. But to your bigger point, yes, I think a shift to the bullpen can help. It's just sometimes you just need like a refresher. You need something to change your mindset. You need to be able to get in there more than once every 5 days so that you can stay sharp. You need to feel like if you have one really good inning, then you're going to get out of there after that inning and be left with a good taste in your mouth. Whereas if you're a starter and every time you're expected to go 5, 6, 7 innings, well, if you've been stake bit a few times, you start to feel like, okay, I had a good first, maybe I had a good second, maybe even I had a good third, but this is going to catch up to me at some point. Then it sort of does. Then, a good outing turns into a bad outing. So shifting to the bullpen, having those shorter outings, being able to pitch more frequently, having a little bit different mindset coming in later in the game, I think that can serve as a bit of a reset. But a pitcher like Vasquez knows how to do both. If he ends up back in the rotation at some point, he'll slip back into that mindset. And hopefully, if he's had some success coming out of the bullpen, that can carry over even as he shifts back into a starting role.
The last player I want to talk about is Walker Buehler. He starts tonight. He has reinvented himself. He looked really good for over a month and then has since really seen a lot of damage or has given up a lot of damage. And it's almost like teams have now adjusted to the new Walker Buehler. Again, with the experience that you have of understanding how difficult it is to make adjustments in the big leagues, do you see this as something that Walker Buehler could potentially overcome based on what you've seen, or has the league figured out what the new Walker Buehler is, and is that what was a reason for success the first time?
I think there's something to be said for the league probably not knowing exactly what they were going to see from Walker Buehler and now having a little bit better sense of it. But I think he's perfectly capable of adjusting to their adjustments. I mean, he's not what he was, but he is still a good pitcher with good stuff. His fastball can play. It's not dominating like it used to be, but he can command the ball and he can offer off speed that can still be successful at this point in his career. So, whether he's going to be a dominant force for long stretches, I don't know. That would be quite a comeback. But whether he could still provide a spark down the stretch here for the Padres, I think that's completely still in play. Even guys who don't have, quote unquote, kind of dominant stuff or the type of ace stuff, they're still going to have days like JP Sears did yesterday where command is really good. Stuff is just a little extra sharp. They just feel a little more life in their arm, and you put a few of those together, you can get on a nice little stretch here. And I don't think there's anything to suggest that Walker Buehler doesn't have hopefully a couple more of those stretches left in him here, certainly this year, as the Padres try to close it out on a good note.
Mike, we appreciate the time. We got to do this again. Hopefully have a continuation of a great summer, and hopefully the next time we're speaking on the air, the Padres have a little bit more in the win column than the loss column.
That sounds great. I'm happy to chat anytime, Braden. You just let me know.
Mike Gosling joining us on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. It's not Big Bank Banking. It's better. We do got to get to break, but a good conversation with Mike talking pitching and his fun story about making the major league debut. Yeah, don't hit Adrian Beltre. That's probably not the best. He failed to mention that Adrian Beltre gave him a smile after the catcher talked him off the ledge. So what an interesting way to start your career. When we come back, we'll get to the sports thread from today. We're a little bit late on that. We'll continue our conversation on the Padres. And yes, we will get to the Aztecs and their football program in just a little bit. More to come on the Braden Surprenant Show. Setting us number sports station 97 through the Fan. MLB trade deadline is less than 2 weeks away, and some fascinating trade ideas are starting to surface. One proposal has the Padres acquiring Freddie Peralta from the Mets in exchange for a top pitching prospect in Cash Mayfield. It's exactly the kind of buy low move A.J. Preller has made before. I don't honestly know if it's buying low, though, with a guy like Cash Mayfield. But a veteran pitcher with ace potential, his value has dropped. Other ideas include George Kirby heading to San Francisco, Hunter Goodman joining the Red Sox, Michael Wacha helping the Cubs playoff push, Luisa Rise giving the Rangers another elite contact bat. Biggest lesson, championships aren't always won by landing the biggest superstar. They're often won by finding the player everyone else gives up on or finding the right mix of players like Atlanta did back in 2021. As August 3rd gets closer, I would imagine this report becomes less and less accurate, if you will, as the days go on because of all the crazy things that could potentially happen in trades. But trade season is officially here. Jim Bowden put out some ideas, the trades he would like to see. Number one, Mariners shaking up the rotation as it sends George Kirby from Seattle to the Giants in return. Versatile infielder Casey Schmidt from San Diego State and left-handed reliever Eric Miller. For Seattle, it solves two needs immediately. They had a right-handed bat, destroys left-handed pitching while also striking their bullpen. For San Francisco, they replaced Robbie Ray if he's moved immediately, and immediately paired George Kirby with Logan Webb to create one of the better 1-2 punches in the National League. It's bold. It makes some baseball sense. Interesting trade idea from Jim Bowden, Frank.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, interesting to find George Kirby getting traded. But yeah, for Casey Schmidt, who's a versatile infielder, as you mentioned, another guy that Seattle can use, plus a bullpen arm for a team that has been so up and down this year. We talk about how the Padres have been up and down. Seattle has been just as bad, if not worse, than the Padres have been on that roller coaster. So that would be a nice little trade to kind of hope to level Seattle out a little bit.
Trade idea number 2, according to Jim Bowden. Red Sox go all in. Boston, been searching for offense all season. Proposal lands them one of the best young catchers in baseball, maybe Hunter Goodman from Colorado.
Yeah, the cost would be a massive prospect package highlighted by Marcelo Mayer, along with pitching prospects and catcher Carlos Narvaez. The Rockies would essentially be betting on 4 long-term pieces instead of 1 all-star catcher. Boston would be betting that Goodman becomes the middle-of-the-order bat they have desperately needed for the last few years now, and sometimes you have to give up a premium in order to acquire that talent. Interesting that it would take Marcelo Mayer to get that done, and I think it will have to.
The one that they proposed for the Padres would be with the Mets. No better combo to talk about it than me and you. I don't necessarily know I like this at all. I don't think the Padres are in a position to do this, but according to Jim Bowden, a trade you like to see, Padres acquire Freddie Peralta for the Mets, who's a rental, and the Padres would send one of their top pitching prospects in Cash Mayfield back to New York. I mean, you could go through the gamble that this could potentially be. The Padres, to me, cannot be trading for rentals. I think they need to be trading for the future. If they decide to buy at the trade deadline, I don't think they can give up a guy like Cash Mayfield, but if they did, it would be for a starting pitcher that they had years of control over. And I think the same thing goes with any of their top prospects. I mean, I don't think they could trade Ethan Salas unless it leads to a Shea Langoliers or something like that, where you turn the current prospect into what they could potentially be and you expedite the process to now. Other than that, I don't really like ideas like this of trading for a rental just for one guy. And if you have to give up a Cash Mayfield for this, I don't think it's going to pay dividends for the Padres in the long run.
If it was 2024, I would do this. But with the
2022, 2024,
yeah, exactly.
Any of the years that you're like one piece away, Padres are not.
In this situation, absolutely not. This is not something I would do for Peralta. His ERA is inflated this year. Cash Mayfield, from the Met perspective, isn't really quite ready yet. It's going to be a couple years, so you're still waiting on that. And now it looks like the Mets are going to ship Freddie Peralta back to Milwaukee, which for Jet Mayfield and Brandon Sproat, I'd do it.
Cubs continue to search for starting pitching. Michael Wacha could be an opportunity for the Chicago Cubs. I think the Cubs definitely need starting pitching. I don't know how they've been able to survive without it so far, but with so many devastating injuries for them in the starting rotation, I think Michael Wacha is perfect. He's having a really good year for Kansas.
Yeah, and the suggestion would be to give up former top prospect Matt Shaw, as well as Kevin Alcantara. So an infielder, 2 infielders there. It is expensive. But with the situation that the Cubs find themselves in and how desperate they are for starting pitching.
Let's join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. We are going to talk a little bit of football today on the show as we discussed potential trade values for the first 2 hours of the show. Again, Frank and I are in agreement here. Not necessarily think you're going to get a lot of value back for a Mason Miller deal. But even if, a lot of people go like, he's wasted on this team. I mean, would you rather waste Mason Miller on this team or have 4 mediocre players on this team? I mean, I'd rather just, if that's the case, I'd rather waste Mason Miller. At least he's going to be really good. What about trading Ethan Salas for Shea Langoliers?
I wouldn't be too opposed to that, honestly.
No. Would the A's be opposed to that? I don't think so. How long is Langoliers under contract for?
I would go a little bit further. I would try to get Langoliers and Soderstrom both in some sort of package.
Soderstrom just signed a 7-year deal with them. I can't imagine them trading him away, but you never know.
Why do you just have to immediately crush my dreams?
Facts, dude. The problem with Shea Langoliers is he's a free agent in 2029. I mean, at that point would be around the time he would be getting Ethan Salas back.
Yeah, he's an ARB1. Yeah, he's an ARB1
ARB2,
right now.
ARB3, and he's 28. I wish he was younger. Yeah, imagine watching Leo and Salas on the A's together in a few years. Well, according to Fangraphs, only one of them has a chance. Let's get to what else is going on in sports. Let's get to today's sports thread.
You know that group chat? The one that's always blowing up with the biggest sports takes, debates, and breaking news?
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me?
Yeah, we've got that too. Welcome to the Sports Thread, where we break down the top 5 stories in sports, just like you would with your crew.
Oh, no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
No filters, no silence, just real talk.
All right, Frank, we got going on in the sports world today that's not trading Mason Miller.
We got some who do you think you are moments coming up, and we're going to start with this one.
Number 1.
New Kentucky head coach Will Stein is already making headlines after confidently saying he believes the Wildcats can win, quote, because of me.
Brother.
While the quote went viral, Stein backed it up by explaining that his confidence comes from learning under Oregon coach Dan Lanning and bringing that winning blueprint to Lexington. With a top 10 transfer portal class, a new quarterback, and an aggressive recruiting approach, Stein has quickly energized the program and convinced players that Kentucky can compete for a college football playoff berth, despite one of the toughest schedules in the SEC. Do you like a coach publicly showing this much confidence before coaching a single game? Or do bold statements like Will Stein's create unnecessary pressure and expectations?
I'm out on that.
Here's what you know. Sounds like the latter.
Here's what you need to do as a good coach. Good coaches understand that good players win games. No matter what you do, I mean, you could get them in the right spot. All this other stuff. Good players win games. If you have good players, you win. I mean, yes, I think having a coach with strategy and X's and O's is very important. I think they can get the most out of a lot of players sometimes. But if he's already taking credit for why they're going to be a lot better than they were last year, brother, he is going to be dished a serving of humble pie very quickly. I mean, this is a guy that has never been a head coach. Okay, he's been a grad assistant at Louisville where he played. He was a quality control coach at Louisville. He coached as a quality control coach at Texas. He was a high school assistant head coach and offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at Lake Travis. He was the passing game coordinator at UTSA, co-offensive coordinator at UTSA, offensive coordinator at Oregon. These are all great places to be. It's a great resume. He has never been a head coach. He is playing in the one of the most difficult conferences in all of college football. He has to deal with a lot of badass teams with badass coaches. I don't think Kentucky is going to turn things around because a former Louisville player is the new head coach. He should have been like, we got really good players this year. I'm very excited about these guys. I think we're going to have a really good year. That's where he probably should have gone. Not because of me. But you know what? You know who did that? Indiana's coach did that. Mm-hmm. Look me up, I win. But he had success as a head coach
before
everywhere else he had been. He had been on a lot of good staffs. So from that perspective, maybe. This is the first year of being a head coach, probably want to put that one on the shelf, dude. But we'll see. Maybe Kentucky surprises everybody. Maybe they kick everybody's ass. I'm not convinced.
This year's Vanderbilt.
Number 2.
Yeah, they need Diego Pavia for that, of course.
This one's more of a who do you think you are because of what stage in his career he is. LeBron James' free agency remains one of the NBA's biggest mysteries, with agent Rich Paul saying there's no timetable for the 4-time MVP to decide where he'll play next season. Paul emphasized LeBron will not be rushed and that interested teams, including the Cavs, Heat, 76ers, and Warriors, have already made their pitches. As the Lakers prepare to move on and the league awaits one of the biggest decisions of the offseason, Paul insists the delay isn't about attention, but giving LeBron the time to make the best basketball and business decision for the next chapter of his career. At this point in his career, does the decision 2.0 have as much impact to be drawn out like this that LeBron, and more specifically the sports media, thinks it does?
No.
The four-letter network.
Nobody cares. LeBron is continuing trying to be the center of attention. He's doing this to be a center of attention. It's like he's running out of years to continue to be the center of attention. I pick a team, dude. Nobody cares. You're not that player anymore that can dictate this kind of stuff. I mean, he's not one of the top 10 players in the NBA. Is he a top 15 player in the NBA? Maybe. No, just pick a team. Let's go, man. Like, it's not that big of a deal. There's so many better players in the NBA right now than LeBron. LeBron's had a great career, everything like that. But, like, bro, this isn't about you anymore. Stop trying to be the center of attention. 2.0 decision, not going to be it.
It's 2010 all over again. It's really all this is. Mexico versus South Africa opens the World Cup. Spain wins the World Cup. LeBron James makes a decision. Justin Verlander's an all-star. An international artist headlines the Super Bowl halftime show. This is a repeat of 2010.
Yeah.
LeBron's going to the Heat. Congratulations. He's taking his talents to South Beach.
Number 3.
The Yankees beat the Pirates in 8-5 behind 2 more home runs from Jazz Chisholm Jr. But the biggest story came late in the game when the benches cleared after Pirates pitcher Dennis Santana confronted Yankees infielder Jose Caballero. Santana took exception to Caballero's legal but controversial tactic of waiting until the final seconds of the pitch clock before engaging with the pitcher, saying it disrupted the game's rhythm. Caballero defended his routine as gamesmanship within the rules, while Santana argued across the line, reigniting the debate over how far players should go to gain a mental edge. If a player's tactics are completely within the rules but are clearly frustrating opponents, is that smart gamesmanship or poor sportsmanship?
I mean,
it's not illegal. It's just hyper irritating.
I mean, this is kind of like the unwritten rules situation, right? I guess if there's unwritten rules, like I'll put it this way, like if you play co-ed softball, okay, and your goal is to hit the ball as hard as you can at a girl who's not very good, and then try and take extra bases on said girl. It's well within the rules, but it's kind of frowned upon, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, I view it kind of the same. If it's well within the rules, it's well within the rules. That doesn't mean it's, like, cool to do, if that makes sense. I think there's unwritten rules that are a part of the game just as much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if it's according to the rules, they fit, fine. But people aren't going to like you, which is also part of the deal. So, anyway.
I think we need to get to break here.
Let's get to break. When we come back, talk a little Aztec football. Talk Aztec football. You want to talk football? Let's talk football.
Let's talk football. Let's talk football.
Let's talk football. We'll do that when we come back. 1242 on the Braden Surprenant Show, setting us over on Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, setting us over on Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. I do want to get to how much time we have. We have a handful of minutes here. We would like to get a contestant for a midday sports standoff. If you call in and you take me down in sports trivia, you'll be qualified for a chance at our grand prize, a 2-night stay at Fontainebleau, Las Vegas, and a $150 food and beverage credit. Oasis Pool Deck at Fontainebleau, Las Vegas is officially open for the season, offering a 6-acre elevated pool experience with 6 distinct pools and a beach. Enter to win a 2-night stay at Fontainebleau, Las Vegas, and $150 food and $150 food and beverage credit. To book your stay, visit FontainebleauLasVegas.com. Now, there's 2 things I want to get into. I want to talk about the Aztecs finally getting into the Pac-12 because we talked about it. It happened on July 1st, and getting into what this conference actually is. I also want to get into something that we have kind of tabled for a couple of days that involves the ACC that we'll get to. We also have to talk a little bit about Major League Baseball's second half season preview that we want to get to as well. And then we'll talk Padres and Braves later on in the show. Let's get to, and since I think we have a contestant for the midday sports stand-up, let's get to the ACC first. So we're going to upset Go Aztecs in the Twitch chat, but we're going to talk about the Aztecs in the 1 o'clock hour. Let's get to the ACC. We have the SEC Media Days going on right now. ACC Media Days were last week, and they have changed their championship tiebreaker. So the ACC is changing how it determines which 2 teams play in the conference championship game after last year's controversial finish is what we'll call it. Duke earned a spot over a higher ranked Miami team because of an obscure tiebreaker. Commissioner Jim Phillips said the goal is simple: make sure the 2 best football teams play for the ACC championship, especially now that winning the conference guarantees a college football playoff berth under the new college football playoff format. And the key takeaways are, last season exposed the craziness that is the tie-breaking situation for the ACC. So here's what the new system is. They're going to do head-to-head tiebreaker. So if tied teams played each other, winner would advance. Everyone agreed this remains the fairest measure. And then instead of going through these tie-breaking scenarios, they decided to do a team success ranking, where the ACC will now sports source analytics and their team success ranking. This essentially is an advanced body of work metric that evaluates the strength of schedule, quality wins, overall resume, opponent quality, performance across the season. And instead of relying on quirky schedule luck, the conference wants to reward the strongest overall season. Why are we doing this? I mean, we already don't like the committee that determines the college football playoff, but we're going to basically do this again with having it go from head to head to we're going to pick who the best team is. I'm so sick and tired of football people going, oh, this is the best team, instead of just having them play it out on the field. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Yeah, last year didn't work out because you guys have so many freaking teams in your conference that they can't all play each other, which means you got these crazy tiebreakers, which gets you Duke into the ACC championship game that they actually won. You didn't have Duke win the conference and cost you a playoff spot because the tie-breaking system's jacked up. You had Duke win your conference championship because the schedules aren't fair, because you have too many teams in your league, because you probably shouldn't have super conferences, because everybody's chasing the dollar instead of what's best for college football. Am I off base on this, Frank? I mean, to me, it's a simple fix. I don't know. Don't have 18,000 teams in your conference, and you probably have a fairer version of determining a college conference champion.
But
we want the best teams.
But money.
But money, yeah. And we want the best teams, a.k.a. we want the teams that are going to make us the most money in the final. Oh, what are we doing?
Have you considered money? What about the money's feelings?
Yeah, how about, I don't know, not have Cal and Stanford in your conference? I don't know, maybe not have SMU in your conference. I don't know, maybe cut your conference down a little bit and make people play legit schedules. I don't know. Maybe have divisions. Oh, we didn't want divisions because our most marketable teams weren't winning the divisions. It was unfair that two of our most marketable teams were in the same division, and we want to have the best chance. This is what you do when you try to manipulate who wins your conference every year, and you just made it worse. If you're going to have a conference that has 1,000 teams in it, maybe you should have divisions. Oh, but one division isn't as good as the other. Who cares? This is what happens when you try to force teams into a playoff because you're worried about resumes, because everything is about what people's opinions are about the team instead of them actually playing the games. Stupid. This is stupid. Is this not stupid? You're not the PR guy for the ACC or the PR guy for the Big Ten. I'm ready for you to S on this.
No, I am the PR guy for the Power Act 12.
You are not going to like my next segment then.
We would love to have Cal and Stanford back. We would also love to have Oregon back, USC, UCLA.
Wouldn't everybody?
We would love to have you guys back.
This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in the ACC. I get what they're trying to do, but they're not acknowledging the real problem, and they're trying to fix problems that don't exist.
Can you think of the poor small business for once? Money. Have you thought money yet?
Yeah, we can't have Duke in the college football playoff. We need Miami in it because they make way more money than everybody else does. Miami actually did a pretty good job in the ACC, in the college football playoff.
we want Duke in the final 12. We want Duke in the final 12 of the playoff. Oh wait, no, the basketball one, not the football one. What are you talking about? Not that one.
Not that playoff.
Silly Billy.
Okay, aside from like making it the sarcastic hour,
it's stupid. It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. So stupid. I'm going to crush the Pac-12 in the next segment, so you better be ready, Frank.
I will be.
But before we do that, let's get to the Midday Sports Standoff. We have a couple minutes.
Welcome to Midday Sports Standoff on the Braden Surprenant Show.
I can't believe what I'm seeing right now.
The ultimate head-to-head battle where sports knowledge and quick thinking collide.
No, it's no good. Are you kidding me, Mr.
Contestants will go toe-to-toe with Braden in a sports trivia deal where every correct answer brings them closer to victory.
Down the sideline! Wow! Unbelievable!
But 3 strikes and it's game over.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
Can you outsmart Braden? The Midday Sports Standoff starts now.
All right, Frankie, we got playing today.
We have Mark in Sierra Mesa playing today. Mark, how you doing, bud?
Sierra Mesa or Sarah Mesa?
It's Sierra Mesa.
Sarah Mesa. What's going on, Mark?
Mark, you there?
Oh, no.
He was there.
Oh, no. Mark, he put his phone on mute.
Oh, there we go.
It is. Hey.
Sorry, guys. I was trying to go through the car.
No,
That's all right.
You're all good. So today's question is, the Padres have played 11 different teams.
Oh, my God. You were on such a good roll for games. Go ahead.
Padres have played 11 different teams to open up the second half of their season since 2010.
How does anybody remember that?
Who are they? Mark, you have the first guess.
What a joke.
Stop it.
Are you kidding me?
This is pretty cruel. Okay, well, we're going to go with the Atlanta Braves if this year counts.
Well, this year does count, but it wasn't the Atlanta Braves. The Braves are on the list, though.
Kansas City.
There you go.
It's always on the road, too, so I guess I can start narrowing
Not
down.
always.
Most of the time it is.
Most of the time, yes.
Comic-Con road trip.
I'm going to say the Orioles.
Well, they have not played Baltimore.
Cleveland. when they lost
play
7-0
Cleveland,
in the first game, and then everybody thought they could win the World Series after that.
It's got to be the Marlins then.
Really?
Both way overthinking this.
What about?
There are no more American League opponents.
He just said the Marlins. What's a National League opponent?
No, I know that, but I mean, you said the
I feel
Guardians
like-
last and the Royals.
I feel like St. Louis is on there or something.
St. Louis is on there. Yes. Mark?
Just stole mine. God. Let's go with the Cincinnati Reds.
No, Mark, I'm sorry. That is strike 3.
Oh my God, poor Mark. That's brutal.
I
man.
mean-
come on. You were on. Where's Juan Ruiz when we need him?
I said, you guys way overthought this. They played the Giants 3 times, Mets twice, Phillies, Nationals twice,
Mostly East Coast teams, except for the Giants so far
Rockies, Dodgers, Diamondbacks.
since 2010.
Yes.
I mean, I guess eventually you're going to play every team in the National League to start. Maybe. I mean,
didn't-
and almost everybody.
I didn't think that was as difficult as it turned out to be.
Why would anybody know that information? Come on. Name the first opponent of the second half of
You know,
the Padres since
that has been-
2010?
That has been on there for the last week.
I know.
You could have said something.
No, I wanted you to do this. I wanted you to do the experiment here.
Okay.
I wasn't done guessing either. I wanted to guess, but you just wanted to ruin the answers. Come on. We were on such a roll. I know. I should have guessed the Mets. I mean, the Mets are usually, if it's a baseball, most of the questions that Frank asks has one of his teams as an answer. Hence why he found it the first time.
They haven't played the Mets to open up the second half of the season since the mid-2010s.
I do remember the Mets and the Padres opening up the season against each other a couple times. Citi Field. Adam Klug in the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
Who
saw
did the Padres play on the 4th of July in 1983? That's a great, you know what? That's up there with the same level of question. Come on. We've been better than this. Poor Mark. Mark got stuck. He got the short end of the stick with that question. 833-288-973. 833-288-973. You thought that was rough, Frank? Well, if you're going to represent the Pac-12, this next segment might be rough for you. We'll talk about the Aztecs being in the Pac-12, what the Pac-12 is when we come back. 1 o'clock. Braden Surprenant Show, final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show, leading you into Gwyn and Chris, and then Padres baseball coming up at 4:15. Equal Water SoCal Padres pregame show at 3:15 later on these airwaves. Padres trying to even up the series with Atlanta. One more win against the Braves, and the Padres would win the season series. Better do it in the next two. I don't know how they're going to win on Thursday based on the pitching matchup, but it is baseball. Crazier things do happen. We've spent most of the show today talking about Mason Miller and what you could potentially get in a trade for him. And we broke down what some of these values of these prospects would be, their percentage chance of being good, their percentage chance of never making it. It's a massive risk taking on prospects. It's a massive risk taking on a lot of these players. Tap the sign. I can't read that sign on this thing, but what does it say? Prospects aren't a sure thing. Yep, tap the sign. We like to believe that they are. We like to believe that they are many a times. Like I had, and I'm going to talk about Aztec football here in the Pac-12 in a second, but like we had this, comment on social media. And this guy always like just tweets and stuff in all caps. We talked about the percentages, right, Frank, of failure for a lot of these players. And like some of them based on the grade have like a 7% chance of being like a star player. And a star player, according to Fangraphs, is a 4 WAR on a consistent basis, at least more than 2 years. That's what is considered a star in Major League Baseball. Now, Fernando Tatis Jr. has more than a 4 WAR, multiple seasons. In a Padres uniform, he is considered a star, even though a lot of Padres fans have now said, he's not a star. I can't believe you think he's a star. It's amazing how fast people turn on players. But this tweet that we got was, it doesn't even make any sense, but he wanted to make it say, like, the past couple of years, Padres have traded 5 or 6 top prospects. At least 4 of them have become very good players, so context is key. Who are those players? Who are those players? I can think of 2 off the top. CJ Abrams, right? James Wood. Who are the other players we're talking about? CJ Abrams has yet to achieve a 4 WAR season in any of his years in Washington. He might do it this year for the first time. He has yet to do it at any point in his career, and he would have to do it on a consistent basis. James Wood has finally got to a 4 WAR this season. He had never done it previously. So this is the first year. He has to do it again next year for him to be considered a star according to Fangraphs. And so some of these prospects, even the highly rated ones, have like a 7% chance of reaching the threshold that is Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, you could look at your own team. You could look at a guy like Jackson Merrill, right? I mean, you decided to keep him. He was highly graded. Could potentially be a star player. You paid him like he was. He would have to have a 4 WAR more than just one season and like consecutively. He's done it once. His first year at 4.5 WAR, 2.8 WAR last year, 0.5 WAR this year. There's no guarantee. That's even with your own players. This is why last year when we had this conversation, I mentioned multiple times, look, some of these prospects are never going to make it. You can say goodbye to these guys. They're never going to impact your team. And if they do, it's going to be a long time from now. I mean, start looking at some of the prospects you sent out last year. Leo DeVries is the only one people are afraid of. He grades out. Leo DeVries grades out as a 60 future value player, and a 60 future value player has roughly a 26% chance of becoming a backup or worse. Only around 20 hitters in baseball each year get graded at that level. So there's no guarantee with Leo DeVries, even though he has done very well in the minor leagues and he is one of the best prospects in Major League Baseball. I mean, even he is a massive risk for the A's in comparison to what they knew they had in Mason Miller. So I just laid out the information in the first couple of hours. If you missed any of it, go back, listen. You can listen on the Odyssey app. You can go back in the rewind function. You can find us on YouTube at @B_SURP, youtube.com/at @B_SURP. You can see all of that stuff if you want to take a look. Let's talk about Aztecs football. Okay. I think San Diego State football has a really good chance to have a good year. And I'm not the only one. Like Phil Steele, I've been reading up on his magazine since I got it. He's got the Aztecs finishing tied for second in the new formed Pac-12 conference. And I'm like, I totally get the point that it's better than the Mountain West. And it is better than the Mountain West. As much as the Mountain West wants to pop off, it's better than the Mountain West. Okay. Mountain West is open for business. They want to add more teams. Yeah. Who are you going to add? But this is where like I find it to be eyewash. And it was like, and I saw this in the Union Tribune a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't talk about it because we've been busy with baseball, but San Diego State finally gets to the Pac-12, and the emotion from people at San Diego State about this move acting like it was the greatest thing that's ever happened is such a joke. Like, for decades, San Diego State dreamed of joining what was once their premier athletic conference on the West Coast. And that pursuit dates back to the late 1960s when they had Don Coryell, when the Aztecs were the nation's winningest programs. And despite sustained football success, strong recruiting territory, and repeated interest, the Pac-8, Pac-10, and later Pac-12 continually shut the door on San Diego State. The reasons were never about on-field performance. They were about protecting existing members, right? USC, UCLA, little interest in giving San Diego State equal status because it would have created another major recruiting competitor in Southern California. They had quotes from former USC and UCLA leadership throughout the 70s, 80s, make it clear they never wanted San Diego State inside the club. Fast forward to 2023, for the first time it looked inevitable. USC and UCLA were leaving, Snapdragon Stadium had opened, San Diego State was being pursued, and the conference needed another Southern California presence. And then everything fell apart. 8 additional schools decided, we'll see ya. Pac-12 effectively died overnight. San Diego State's invitation disappeared before it officially arrived. That emotional blow explained why AD John David Wicker became emotional when San Diego State was finally accepted into the rebuilt conference in September 2024. But like, I understand you've been chasing this for a long time. But the reality is this isn't the conference that you thought you were jumping into, which is why I know it's like you finally made it to the Pac-12, but if it's not actually the Pac-12, why does anybody really care? I bet you, I don't even know if most of the people listening can even tell me who's in the current Pac-12. My dad's an Aztec alumni. I asked him the question. He had it took him a decent amount of time to try to figure out who was in the Pac-12. So instead of joining USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, both Arizona schools, Utah, Colorado, Stanford, Cal, they joined the 2 remaining Pac-12 schools that got left behind. They're moving with 5 of the best Mountain West programs. Yeah, it's an upgrade for the Mountain West, but they're like, what are we doing? And then you get Texas State. And you get Gonzaga for all the other sports because they don't have football. The conference barely reaches the NCAA minimum requirement of 8 football playing members. Obviously, San Diego State considers it's a win. It's still better than the alternative. It's still better than the Mountain West. It's better football competition. You get to play the 4 best schools from the Mountain West. Get a little bit more television value. Well, probably a better recruiting pitch, positioning for the future. But I think a lot of supporters even acknowledge the fact that this is the conference that people imagined. If you told people in the 1980s that you were going to be in the Pac-12 one day, they probably would have been super stoked. And they would have been more stoked if it was the original Pac-10. But it's not. It's the Mountain West. And you have Washington State and Oregon State. And so, like, you're going to see all the bragging. You're going to see all the pomp and circumstance. You're going to see all the excitement around this conference and how they're a power conference and everything like that. But I don't understand the emotion that it carried and how the overexcitement of this conference when it's essentially the exact same conference you were just in. In fact, you had just played Oregon State and Washington State for the last couple of years. And you can argue that Washington State and Oregon State were closer to Mountain West schools than they were Pac-12 schools for the majority of their existence in the Pac-12, with the exception of baseball. So it's not the Pac-12 you grew up watching. The historic brands are gone. Instead of replacing USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Arizona, the conference largely replaced them with schools that were already competing against San Diego State. And nothing really changes. Nothing changes. I've heard from season ticket holders. They're like, why? This is not a product that is different than what I was already paying top dollar for. It's slightly better. I mean, if you look at the home schedule, who are the teams that you're super excited to go watch play that are in this it's slightly better. I will give them that, but it's not what again keeps getting peddled, I think, about this conference. Here's who's coming to San Diego State this year in football. Portland State, James Madison, Texas State, Fresno State, Washington State, Utah State. If I told you, Frank, that schedule last year, what conference would you tell me they were in?
Probably the Mountain West.
Probably the Mountain West. Probably the Mountain West. So from that perspective, nothing's really changed. We've talked about how to get more people to go watch Aztec football, which I think the football program themselves are doing a great job. And I think this is a very winnable conference for them. They've already proven they can beat the best teams in this conference. If you look at Phil Steele's rankings for this season, San Diego State tied for second. They're tied for second with Fresno State, the school up north. I like that they do that. That's fun. They're who they beat last year. And Boise State, who they also beat last year. San Diego State's got a really good chance at winning this conference, but you missed me on the whole, this is like a big deal that they're in the Pac-12. It is a better deal. It's not a big deal. And I think there's a massive change on that. There's a massive distinction between better deal over big deal. To the point, if I'm San Diego State at any point in time, and I'll ask you this question, Frank, if any conference, which I don't know which ones would, but San Diego State is going to be I think a R2 Research Institute or whatever it is. They're gonna be that R1 that everybody wants in the Big Ten and stuff like that for being a research institution, which is great for San Diego State for future stuff. This is the big negative that they had from the smarty pants schools that kept them out because of their academics. San Diego State's got great academics. The first sign of any conference that is the Big 12 or the Big 10 or the SEC or the ACC, you can say your level of percentage that you would want in terms of likelihood of it happening. If any four of those conferences gave you a call and said, we'd love to have you in our conference, if you don't say yes immediately, you're foolish.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that tell you? You know that those four conferences are at a different level than the one that you're currently in. I honestly, if the American Conference called, I might say yes. And that's another group of 6 conference. So, yes, it's a better deal than it was, but it's not a big deal. That's how I view this entire move. I get it. I know a lot of people were emotional about it and emotionally excited, but I still will never understand why you thought that when you heard that USC and UCLA were leaving and you were going to get the invitation to the Pac-12, why you thought any of those other schools were going to stay. I don't know how you believe that. 833-288-973, 833-288-973. It's got to Kevin in Chula Vista. Kevin, what's going on? Kevin, are you there?
Yes, I am.
There he is.
I agree with you 100%. And to take it further, I think the UT had an article quite extensive a couple of weeks ago. I think you referred to that. And they really went into how Gloria Nevarez, the current commissioner, screwed things up. So I don't know if you caught that or not, but it was, to me, very enlightening in terms of how we got to where we're at right now. So what struck me, Braden, essentially, you've got a situation where you're not getting any more revenue at this point. You're not going to get any more revenue. It's revenue neutral for the next 6 years. So the big hope is during the next musical chairs of conference realignment, something good will happen off of that. But in the meantime, you've really made a lateral move. So my question would be first to San Diego State, if Gloria Nevarez was such a problem, why aren't you not getting together with the other schools and dumping her out and getting a commissioner who is qualified enough to do what needed to be done to rebrand a new conference and expand what was already in pretty good shape just from not having to go out and do a fishing expedition, which the Pac-12 has had to do to put together this whatever they call it, Pac-12 Light. That's my first question. And you're not getting any more money off of this. So that's not a good thing. So in essence, what we're left with is this notion that somehow after 6 years, there's going to be this harmonious magic thing coming out of the sky that will somehow bring San Diego State back to the promised land. Well, they should have just fixed what they had. And I think they could have done it with the right leadership at the top of the conference. They didn't have that. They should have gone after that. Why in the world UNLV is not with them in this new conference boggles my mind, because there's not a rivalry here for San Diego State. I'm sorry. Fresno is not our rival. Hasn't been since PCAA. So there's a lot of things not to get about this thing. And the biggest problem that I have is just trying to brand it as the Pac-12. That is just a fraud. It's false advertising. They should have rebranded it as well. And so, people are going to, wake up to this, and, you're going to get what the little boy shot at the end of the day. That's my concern.
Appreciate the phone call, Kevin. He's not wrong on a lot of that stuff. I mean, the whole reason why you would do this is a move to survive. I still think being in this makeshift Pac-12 is better than being in the Mountain West. But if you're not getting extra money, I mean, it is a lateral move for San Diego State, and it's moving just to move. They're in a position right now they have to survive since they didn't get too much of the life raft that was the Big 12. That was kind of like kicking the tires, not necessarily an official offer. But they have to, when 2030 happens, they have to be in a position where they can jump ship, or they'll be left behind forever. Ron in La Mesa, you're on the Braden Surprenant Show. What's going on, Ron?
Gentlemen, hey, Frank, thanks for not picking me over Mark, because I didn't know any of those questions. And also, I was thinking you were going to ask something like, who are the top 10 Padres players that were traded that went on to win World Series rings with other clubs? I don't know any of them either. So, hey, also, guys, for those of you who watched Friday night's game against the Royals and thought that guy in the K-State shirt was me, Ron in La Mesa, no, it wasn't. He was wearing a Kansas City hat, and I'm a lot better looking than he is. Frank, I got to put my final thoughts on the World Cup. First of all, I didn't know that every time somebody got a foul, that it opened up a town hall meeting with the referee being the politician in the middle. That was pretty cool. Also, I didn't know the Golden Globes gave out the best leading actor for a soccer player when he's flopping on the ground. That's pretty cool, too. Also, Frank, I don't have to watch it again for 4 years. And to top things off, offside still sucks. See you at the park, boys.
Do you think Ron's going to be tuned into the SDFC game tomorrow? Do you think he's going to watch that tomorrow? Doubtful.
I'll press square for doubt. press square for doubt.
You know what? This is the good part about a lot of our listeners that call in to talk smack. Their college football teams are notorious for letting them down. So you got Oregon with Derek LaMesa, who, by the way, has not. You're lucky that Aaron Judge got hurt because we haven't had to hear any type of. Although it was funny, I thought he was doing a pretty good job with keeping that interesting for the amount of home runs that Aaron Judge has hit. But you got Oregon for him, and then K-State, man, has just been the only team they beat is apparently TCU. But aside from that, they've been on the struggle bus for years. It seems like. They had a couple of good years not too long ago. So you just got to pay attention to those games. You are watching for Oregon and K-State to collapse, and you will have your final laugh. When we come back, a preview of the second half for the National League. We talked about the American League yesterday. We talked about the National League today. We'll do that and get you the Padres lineup. North Wilkesboro officially back. Joey Logano reminded everyone why he's still one of NASCAR's biggest threats. Logano led an incredible 323 laps in NASCAR's first Cup Series points race at North Wilkesboro since 1996, holding off Denny Hamlin to earn his first win since May of 2025 and jump back into the chase field. Shane Van Gisbergen also impressed, leading 49 laps at a short track before finishing fifth. Meanwhile, in Formula One, Antonelli strengthened his championship lead with another dominant victory at the Belgian Grand Prix. George Russell retired after first lap contact, allowing Antonelli to extend his advantage to 50 points heading into Hungary. Historic returns, dominant performances, championship races are heating up as both NASCAR and Formula One head toward the most important stretch of their seasons. Did we get the official finish of the IndyCar race?
Yes, we did.
On a Monday?
Yes.
IndyCar had to move to had to move the race to today because of a lot of unfortunate circumstances, but it looked like Paolo was winning anyway.
Alex Palou did win the race. So with IndyCar, we'll get through IndyCar quick before going back to NASCAR. IndyCar got the shaft yesterday. They're broadcasted on Fox, same as the World Cup. Their race started at 5:30, I think it was, p.m. So they were, after that match went on hold, after the match went to extra time, they were put on hold by Fox. So the IndyCar race could not start until after the trophy celebration for the World Cup was over.
Well,
which took place about an hour or so after the game had ended.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the trophy celebration was over, it was raining in Nashville. They lost the track after like an hour and a half of rain delay broadcast, and they forced to push the race to today. Race they could have gotten in had they just run on, say, FS1 or FS2. They had to postpone today due to rain. Because of heat, it was like ambient temperature was like 94, heat index made it 102. Because of extreme heat, they had to push the race back to, when they pushed the race back to today, they lopped off the final 25 laps. So instead of a 250 lap race, it was a 225 lap race. Just completely screwed over the entire time. They were expecting to get the biggest lead in that they could have possibly ever dreamed of, and instead ran a heat-shortened race on Monday.
That's the risk you take, right? It's the deal with media contracts. It's hard to take precedent over the World Cup.
Yeah,
and
especially
if you want the
you're
lead in
IndyCar.
as being on Big Fox and being on broadcast television, sometimes you have to deal with that kind of situation. But for NASCAR, historic wins headline another big weekend over the weekend. Another memorable weekend across the motorsports world. Joey Logano returned to victory lane for the first time in more than a year with a dominant performance in NASCAR's long-awaited return to North Wilkesboro Speedway, while Formula One's championship picture tilted even further towards young star Kimi Antonelli after another commanding Mercedes victory at Spa. What was that?
Spa-Francorchamps.
Spa-Francorchamps.
in Belgium. Yes.
Let's talk about Logano.
Yes, North Wilkesboro Speedway officially returned as NASCAR's returned to NASCAR Cup Series points racing for the first time since 1996, and Joey Logano made sure everybody remembered it. Driving like the former Cup champion, fans remember, Logano led a career high 323 of 450 laps and held off Denny Hamlin over the final 175 laps of the race to earn his first victory since May of last year. And it could not have come at a better time. With only 5 races remaining before the NASCAR playoffs begin, Logano vaulted back into a playoff position and reminded everyone that when Team Penske finds speed late in the season, they are always very, very dangerous. Denny Hamlin finished second after chasing Logano for nearly the entirety of the second half of the race, but simply could not get close enough to pass him. Gibbs continued another strong weekend with Hamlin, Briscoe, and Ty Gibbs finishing second, third, and fourth. Perhaps the biggest surprise, though, Shane Van Gisbergen, the New Zealander, led 49 laps on a short track and finished fifth, fifth, and only 6 cars finished on the lead lap in this race, proving he is becoming much more than just a road course specialist.
Tuesday, Padres trying to even up the series against the Atlanta Braves. Coming up next will be Tony Gwynn Jr., Chris Ello, Matt Scraby for Gwynn and Chris. We will get you to Padres baseball. After that, Equalwater SoCal Padres pregame show at 3:15. First pitch between Padres and Braves will be at 4:15. It will be Walker Buehler for the San Diego Padres tonight. He will be going against Ronaldo Lopez, who's 4-2 with a 3.50 ERA. Tonight's game will be obviously decided by what Walker Buehler shows up. Are you going to get the June Walker Buehler with 1.71 ERA or the July Walker Buehler with a 16.36 ERA? That's one of the biggest month-to-month swings you'll see from any starter. In terms of a lineup, well, we got one for you. Leading off, playing right field, Fernando Tatis Jr. Batting second, playing second. Jake Cronenworth has moved into the 2 spot. Manny Machado plays third, bats third. Ty France bats cleanup and plays first base. Jackson Merrill plays center field, bats fifth. Luis Camposano bats sixth and is the catcher. Gavin Sheets will bat seventh, play left field. Xander Bogaerts bats eighth. He is the shortstop. Luis Rengifo is your designated hitter tonight for the San Diego Padres. No, that is not their El Paso Chihuahuas lineup, which is what the Braves AAA lineup looks like tonight. What'd you say the lineup was for the AAA affiliate of the Braves?
It's the Gwinnett Stripers.
Which used to be the Gwinnett Braves, right?
I believe so. Their lineup tonight, Ronald Acuna Jr., Ha-Sung Kim, Carlos Santana, Rowdy Tellez, Patrick in center field, Andrew McCutchen, Yair Camargo, Luke Williams, and Cal Conley.
There's a lot of big leaguers in that lineup.
There are.
A ton of big leaguers in that lineup.
It's a bad day to be an Iowa Cub.
I don't know. The Iowa Cubs have a lot of pro guys in their lineup too. A lot of rehab assignment guys.
Let's find out, shall we?
I don't know if I like this bit, but go ahead.
Believe it or not, the Iowa Cubs did not.
They didn't
a graphic for their lineup.
Oh, they didn't get the memo that it was.
No, it's lineup.
Start your major league player
it's
roster
graphic day.
Today at the ballpark is Major League Day at the ballpark. We have a lot of major league players playing.
Yeah, they do not have a lineup period yet.
No. Well, they're trying to get all the big league guys to come down.
They have Moises Ballesteros.
There you go. All right. I do want to get to the
Chas McCormick. It is
Chas McCormick. That guy's still around? Anyway, let's get to I want to get to this preview of the second half, but I spent a lot of time in that last segment and in a serious conversation, Frank. One, I think the Pac-12 is better than the Mountain West. 2, I think San Diego State can win the Pac-12 this year. And 3, stop trying to sell me on something that it's not. That article the other day, it was just like talking about, oh, it's been 60 years. They finally did it. They finally got... Taking your gimmick bit hat off. I mean, isn't it kind of an overreaction that we have been fed here from articles and from San Diego State about how great the Pac-12 is going to be? Yes, it's better than the Mountain West, but it's a lateral move, and I don't understand the constant, like, getting to the point of tears that we finally made it into the conference we've always wanted to make it in, even though it's not that conference anymore.
You're excited about this move purely for the name recognition of Pac-12, period. That's it. There is nothing even remotely close to resembling the Pac-12 that you were aiming for here. Oregon State and Washington State are not resembling what you went here for. You targeted the Pac-12 for Oregon. You targeted it for USC, UCLA, Arizona State. They're all gone. Cal, Stanford, they're all gone. You are clinging on to the name more so than the reality of what the conference is, which is nothing. It's nothing.
I'm curious to see if this would have been the reaction if they didn't like reform the Pac-12 and Washington State and Oregon State just stayed in the Mountain West and they just changed the name. And they're like, with it, because they own the rights to the Pac-12, like, hey, we'll come and join this conference, but we're changing the name to the Pac-12. Here's all our entities. And the Mountain West disappeared, and then it was called the Pac-12, and nobody moved except for Washington State and Oregon State. Do you think Aztec fans or the people that were super excited about this would still have the same excitement? I don't think they would. I think they'd be like, okay, they changed the name. The fact that they physically moved to the Pac-12, even though it's basically the same conference that they're already in.
I mean,
I don't know what gets. I don't understand the logo on the jersey. Like,
you don't have to go to New Mexico State anymore. You don't have to go to
New Mexico, right? You don't have to go to Wyoming. You have to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, you don't have to go to Hawaii anymore. You don't have to go to Nevada anymore for basketball. You don't have to go to Grand Canyon. I mean, other than that, like, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. So instead of going to Albuquerque, you're going to Pullman. And instead of going to Colorado Springs, you're going to Corvallis. I mean, that's the only other like upgrades that you had. I don't get the hype. I will say the Aztecs have a good football team, and they got a lot of returning guys back. And we'll talk more about for the on-the-field perspective. This is a very winnable conference for them. Is it more winnable than it was when it was the Mountain West? I don't think it's more winnable. It's probably the same. Everything is the same with the exception of like the logo. But even that's not even like, it's not even like the Pac-12 logo you had. They like redid that.
You're fighting Boise State. That's all you're doing, which is exactly what you were doing last year.
Anyway, and you've been doing for the last decade plus. When we come back, second half preview of the National League. But before that, fifth caller, we got tickets to give away. If you are the fifth caller, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. If you are the fifth caller, you will win a pair of tickets to Hudson Westbrook at Front Wave Arena on October 3rd. Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com. Fifth caller, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Pair of tickets, Hudson Westbrook, Front Wave Arena on October 3rd. Fifth caller wins them. Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com. We'll announce the winner when we come back from break. 140 on the fan. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. We had a winner. Who was our winner today?
Kai in El Cajon.
Kai in El Cajon. Congratulations. He is going to see Hudson Westbrook at Front Wave Arena October 3rd. You can get your tickets now at AXS.com. We're going to go back into our baseball coverage, and our baseball coverage on 97 Through the Fan is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi. One price, 5 years, guaranteed. Xfinity. Imagine that. All right, let's talk about the second half of the MLB season for the National League. We talked about the American League yesterday. Obviously, we are 4 games into the ceremonial second half. Padres are 1-3. Padres have gained a game in the standings after being 1-3. It's amazing. We'll see what happens tonight in Atlanta. New changes to the batting order, as we mentioned before. Cronenworth bats second tonight. Xander Bogaerts is batting 8th for the first time since 2015. We'll see how that works out. But let's fire up the music because we love the music. And let's talk about the National League here in the second half. All right. National League. A little bit different than the American League. Unlike the American League, the National League has legitimate powerhouses at the top, and there's really 3 separate races going on. You have the Dodgers trying to repeat, you have the 2 teams in the National League East battling it out, and you have the wild card war involving nearly half the league and half the league of mediocrity, if you will. In the National League West, which is obviously our main focus, Dodgers remain the standard, even with injuries, underperforming stars, missing frontline pitching. Still on baseball's best record. That says everything. Depth is absurd. Even more concerning, they still haven't played their best baseball yet. Oh, and by the way, they don't have Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, or Edwin Diaz, who are going to return at some point to make the Dodgers even stronger. That's the glaring problem for a lot of teams in baseball. And I asked this question, Frank. I mean, let's talk about this. For everybody, because this always is when we talk about the trade deadline and buying and selling, what is a big knock on the buying part for a lot of people?
Giving up prospects for rentals.
That's one. The other one is, well, they're not going to win the playoffs anyway. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could honestly say that for everybody in the National League except for 2 teams. There are 2 teams playing for the National League pennant right now. It's the Dodgers and it's the Brewers. I don't think Atlanta has enough to be part of that conversation, not the way they've been playing the last couple of months. I don't think Philly does. I mean, Philly, if you look at how Fangraphs evaluates their team via WAR offensively and defensively, they are being carried right now. They are being carried right now by their pitching staff. And their pitching staff's really good. The Chicago Cubs are being carried right now by their offense. Those are 2 one-dimensional teams. At this point, and we already talked about the American League, it seems like it's a 2-team race, and there's a bunch of mediocrity mixed in. I'll ask you this. We've seen almost everybody in the National League but the Marlins, and we've seen the Padres play against them. If you took the Dodgers out of Major League Baseball, would you consider the playoffs to be wide open for both sides?
Yeah, more or less.
I mean, the Brewers are probably a close second behind that, right? But if you took the Dodgers out of the playoffs, just take them completely out of Major League Baseball, which I know you can't do, would you consider the Padres having no chance at winning in the playoffs?
No.
No, not with the teams that are around. I mean, teams can't even separate themselves from the Padres right now in the wild card. So to me, the races are simple. It's the Dodgers and Brewers for the National League. It's the National League East battle to see who represents them in the playoffs. And then it's everybody else that's just trying to make the playoffs that have no chance of beating the Dodgers, the Brewers in the National League playoffs. And that's how this kind of shows up. I mean, look at Arizona. They refuse to disappear, but their pitching staff is awful and it's been devastated. Offense is underperformed, yet they're still above 500. You look at the Padres. And in this article about previewing the second half, the main criticisms about the Padres are stuff that we've talked about a ton. Worst offense in baseball. Tatis has completely changed his swing. He's not the power guy anymore. Manny Machado has struggled for most of the season. Jackson Merrill hasn't become the superstar expected. Xander Bogaerts hasn't produced. Jake Cronenworth hasn't produced. Even worse, they're wasting Mason Miller back there. Why would anyone expect the offense to suddenly improve in late July when it hasn't improved for 4 months? And that is probably the most important question surrounding this franchise. And even then, in 4 games now since, they had the one game that they put up 19 runs, Frank, but this offense has not improved and has not given you a sight of, it's slightly improved, but it hasn't turned itself into something that you're excited for in the second half of the season.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't given you like any glimmer of hope that a run is possibly coming. And that was your biggest thing, is the lineup, for as bad as it has been all season long, for it to have one outing so far, and then to follow that up with a 2-run, 6-hit performance, something we've seen way too much of this year. It doesn't give you much feeling there that a run is going to be coming at some point.
National League Wild. I mean, do I need to waste my time with the Giants? What a disaster they have been. How come we haven't heard a lot of trade rumors about their guys getting shipped off? Is it because nobody wants them?
I mean, they have a lot of big name contracts.
They got a lot of big contract
big money
guys.
Contracts.
The only one that isn't on a big contract is Luis Arise, because he's a free agent and he's
the only one getting shopped.
And he's an all-star, but he's still kind of a one-dimensional player.
Devers 29-1, Adames 26. Looking through here, Matt Chapman's on the IL 25-2. Harrison Bader 10-2. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year.
I did see Casey Schmidt in some rumors, and he's probably ARB eligible, I would imagine. The young guy from San Diego State.
Casey Schmidt is a pre-ARB.
Yeah, so he might bring some value, but the Giants I can't imagine them being competitive next year unless they try to buy their way out of problems. But let's look at the National League wild card. I mean, the current contenders include the Cubs and Phillies, who are both heavy on hitting, heavy on pitching. They're finding ways by being elite at one thing. Phillies have had elite pitching. Cubs have had elite hitting. They haven't had necessarily the reciprocal of that on the other side. So there's 2 teams that have been one-dimensional. And then you got Marlins, Cardinals, Pirates, Diamondbacks, and Padres in a huge traffic jam. And not one of them right now wants to take the bull by the horns and run with the wild card spot. Marlins have lost 7 straight. Cardinals are 1-3 in the second half. Pirates dropped another one last night. Their game today has been postponed against the Yankees. Diamondbacks have looked a lot better, but they also lost last night to the A's. Nobody is taking advantage of the situation. Nobody has taken the National League wild card. It doesn't seem like anybody wants to win that final spot in the National League wild card, just as much as we talked about yesterday, how nobody wants to win the American League West.
And also, I mean, you're sitting now in a position where you're facing the Dodgers in the wild card. If that is the case, if you were to take that final wild card spot, Milwaukee passed the Dodgers yesterday. So right now it's Brewers 1, best record in baseball, Dodgers 2.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one to swallow. But I tell you what, you'd rather be in the playoffs than not be in the playoffs. I rather would. I'm not in the position of I'd rather just go home than lose in the playoffs. I'd rather be in it because you never know what can happen. But again, they have to get back to 500 before you start talking about things like that. And they're 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. This team is failing into a playoff spot. Biggest surprise going into the All-Star break was Miami, but they have lost 7 straight games now. I don't think they survive. I have the Marlins done enough now on losing 7 straight definitely puts them in a little bit of a hole. They're 52-49. Have the Marlins done enough to try to fast forward their plans to add for this year, or should they stay to the plan and not sell some of their young guys? I think they should stick to their plan right now and just stay where they're at and see if they can put themselves into the postseason. I don't think they should change their plans and start trying to show up earlier than expected.
I think you're in a buy mode if you're Miami. I don't think you're in a full-on go for it, because you're also going – I'm looking at it as for Miami as a perspective of you're going to need people to go there if and when a salary cap and floor are implemented, because you're going to need to become compliant with the floor. You're going to need to show players, hey, I know this is an income tax-free state. That's a big plus. Big minus is you're going to be playing in front of 10,000 people, if that, every single night, if you're lucky. But we are a playoff team. We're going to make the playoffs. We're going to be a contender. Here's why you should come here. So I think they're kind of in the same boat as the Padres, where it's a soft buy. I don't think they should be selling their best, but they should be fighting for a playoff spot this year.
Pirates have announced that they are willing to shop O'Neal Cruz for bullpen help.
Sure they are.
Does anybody want O'Neal Cruz?
That's why they're willing to shop him.
That's exactly. I mean, he was a circus out in the outfield, wasn't he? O'Neal Cruz this year.
He was never an outfielder, though. He was always a third baseman.
He's got 14 home runs, hitting 264. Would you trade a rental bullpen arm for O'Neal Cruz? Where's he going to play on this team? I don't know.
I mean, he could be your DH at the moment with how many guys are hurt, but I would not.
Yeah, I'm not that interested in him, per se. O'Neal Cruz has 2 more years of control left. He's 27 years old. You would get him for 28, 29 seasons, and then you can let him go. So, maybe.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Updates for tonight. I was right, but too early on the Manny Machado home run. Was I not?
Yeah.
I said 2 against Kansas City. He hit 1 yesterday. Walker Buehler looks more like June Walker Buehler than July Walker Buehler tonight. That's my bold prediction. That's bold, considering the fact that things have not really gotten better for him in July.
Facing Ronaldo Lopez.
They didn't do well against Bryce Elder yesterday, who they have owned in 2 starts.
Padres have
They have to win today, because I don't think they win Thursday, and they have to try to force this into a split in order to go to it. If they split and take 2 out of 3 from Miami, that would be so Padres, because they would be 500.
And they only need 1 win for to clinch the season series. So like that's all you need. You're really just looking for 1. My bold prediction for tonight, I would say Padres get double-digit hits tonight. After a quiet night last night, I think double-digit hits might just be what the doctor ordered for them tonight.
I'd like that. Xander Bogaerts batting 8th. How do you think he does in the 8th spot?
He's earned it.
Yeah.
He's earned it for sure.
That's the thing I like about Xander Bogaerts is he doesn't complain about it. He's like, I got to play better. He's always admitted that. I mean, he does. He does have to play better. He's got to play better offensively, for sure. Yeah, it'd be nice to see any type of semblance of what happened on Sunday today against Atlanta, especially with the bullpen Atlanta's got. Atlanta's got a good bullpen. You don't want to put it into their hands. And Atlanta's been really good with Atlanta's been super good when scoring 3 runs. So you got to try to keep it under 3. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. Gwen and Chris coming up next. We will be back with you guys tomorrow. We'll have a guest from USD to talk about a basketball coaching clinic you can attend if you're a local basketball coach in town. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Hopefully the Padres get the job done tonight. We'll discuss it on Wednesday.